Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to keep us to our schedule this evening. We have a lot of items of business on our agenda. This is our meeting of the Pendleton City Council on June 23rd, starting at 7 p.m. I would call the meeting to order and ask for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so staff, I think I know the answer to this question. Do we have any executive session business for this evening? Okay, hearing none, we don't have any items on the consent agenda. So we're going to go straight into our public hearings for this evening. So for those of you who don't have an agenda in front of you, the first item of business that the council will be reviewing this evening is a public hearing on the consideration of an appeal for a marijuana retail facility in the service commercial C3 zone. Our next items of business will be pertaining to the city budget. So that will take place after this first piece of the hearing. So before I go into the readings here, we are going to have an opportunity for public comment on this item. And I will kind of lead us through that process. We have a staff report. We have the parties in the room here. And this is not a situation that the council typically has in front of us, but we serve as the appeals body to the Planning Commission. So it might look a little bit different than our traditional council meeting. So I'm going to start us out here with, this is a public hearing having to do with a matter of general applicability in the city. We'll begin with a staff report. Those in favor of the proposal or pro appeal will have an opportunity to speak. Then those in favor, then those that are, when all in favor have spoken, those against the proposal will be given an opportunity. Then anyone who spoke in favor will be given an opportunity to reply to information given by those against the proposal. After all have spoken, I will close the public hearing and the council will discuss the proposal. Each person making a statement should step to the microphone and give his or her name. This meeting is being recorded and we will have a time limit for public comment of 3 minutes. Not if you're an involved party, you'll have an extended amount of time, but public comment will be 3 minutes. All exhibits, documents, and other materials submitted at the hearings will be made a part of the record to the proceedings and kept for the city's files until all potential appeals periods have passed. After you are done speaking, please stay at the microphone so members of the council may ask questions. The public hearing is now open, and I would ask for our staff report, please.
Council, Mayor, Julie Chase, City Planner. Am I sharing or are you sharing? Is that what you see? This is the appeal of a conditional use application that the Planning Commission heard. This is for a cannabis retail facility at 406 Northeast Highway 11 It is inside the service commercial C3 zone. So we are here to consider an appeal to the approved conditional use that is at the Old Corral Tavern location. A neighbor requests approval of the appeal that would effectively deny this conditional use, and a fellow marijuana retail owner also requests that same denial. Appellant Hancock has filed an appeal to deny based on the petition of neighbors, proximity to a bus stop, correlation to marijuana facility and illegal drug presence, traffic safety concerns, inappropriate use in a neighborhood, collusion with the city based on annexation, and location within the floodplain, which is really contention of Alomar testimony. Appellant Kindleaf has filed an appeal based on satisfaction of criteria, negative impact mitigation, also proximity to a bus stop, inappropriate use in a neighborhood, and traffic safety concerns. Recreational and medical marijuana facilities are allowed in the central mixed use and the service commercial or C3 planning district. Wholesale are allowed in the light industrial and EFU or exclusive farm use planning districts. All are subject to the conditional use process in our Unified Development Code. So planning districts allowing marijuana, again, the central mixed use and the service or C3 planning districts. If you look up here on the map, you can see in that area with the, I'm going to say a green circle around it, that is where the location is. That is in the C3 zone. This area is in an industrial gateway leading into Pendleton from Walla Walla. On the west side of Highway 11 is Lindell's Auto Salvage, some auto repair shops, and a BP substation. All of this is an industrial zone. Property on the east side of Highway 11 is divided between commercial property, which has mostly, for the record, residences within it, and then also a residential zone. So this is where this corridor is where industrial type uses meet residential living. Here's another picture of our zoning. You can see, didn't turn out too bad. On the west side there of Highway 11, M1 is industrial. Right above that to the north is R1, a residential zone. Both of those abut. On the east side of Highway 11, the C3 commercial zone. You can see how it incorporates more than just this particular piece of property. You can see all of the orange coloring. And then that butts against an R2 residential zone. Now we'll go through the criteria for approval. For a recreation marijuana facility, they may not locate within 1,000 feet of any real property comprising a public or private school containing one or any combination of grades kindergarten through 12th grade, or real property comprising a park or community recreation facility attended primarily by individuals under the age of 18, or another recreational or medical marijuana facility or wholesale or manufacturing facility. So this is what was found. The site is in the service commercial C3 zone, which conditionally allows marijuana facilities. Washington School is approximately 3,900 feet, so it's more than 1,000 feet from the proposed site. There are no known private schools. The only known private school is Pendleton's Christian School on Southwest Haley Avenue, which is well out of the barrier range. The River Parkway is the closest park, and the subject site is more than 1,000 feet from that area. And then you probably can't see because of that. Minimize it. There we go. It's not coming through on the picture up there, but at one point we did have a recreational, or not a recreational, a wholesale grow operation in that neighborhood. It ceased in 2017, I believe, and therefore it opened up that area for additional marijuana facilities. So it is more than 1,000 feet from a marijuana facility, the closest one being Thurs on Southeast Court Avenue, the 1600 block that's more than 3,000 feet from the site. There we go. Additional criteria is that they must conduct all operations indoors in a non-transparent, solid walled structure. They have to confine all objectionable odors to the premises. They have to shield their marijuana plants from public view and their products. Their primary sales entrances have to be located on a street facing facade or their primary parking lot if the building is set perpendicular to the right of way. And no drive-through windows are allowed. So here's what we found. Pendleton Stewards has proposed a non-transparent solid walled structure with narrow windows near the roof line above the midline of the structure, meaning you won't be able to view directly into the building. That's strictly for light to come into the building. Pendleton Stewards will utilize the same charcoal filtration system that is used at Kindly, and no police reports indicate an odor violation there at Kindly or in fact any other marijuana retail store. Pendleton Stewards testified at a conditional use hearing that no marijuana plants will be sold or placed on display or grown at the site. The building's design with high windows will provide a sight barrier between the interior products and the street view. Pendleton Stewards has indicated the main building facade would face Highway 11. And the primary business entrance off Highway 11 will be there rather than off of Riverside Avenue because Highway 11 is a commercial or industrial corridor and it does not provide direct access into a residential neighborhood. And Pendleton Stewards do not propose a drive-through window. Therefore, the conclusion is Pendleton Stewards application includes a facility with windows above the street view height. By locating the main business facade along Highway 11, the marijuana facility is directed towards the commercial industrial corridor of the area, presenting a less obvious face in the neighborhood. There are no drive-through windows proposed. And the Planning Commission did recommend conditions that will further limit the public's views. And those conditions were accepted by the Pendleton Stewards representative. So we'll go through the criteria, a conclusion on that. The council does not make value judgments regarding the social merit of the applicant's choice of profession. Instead, your responsibility is to follow the code to ensure the proposal meets the parameters established within the zone. This is how they meet the zoning criteria. So the city placed time, place, and manner restrictions on marijuana facilities. The city permits marijuana facilities in the C3 service commercial zone. There are locations where commercial and or industrial zones are adjacent to residential zones. Not just at this location, but others, including out at Westgate. This area has been developed with housing in the commercial zone, and the Planning Commission found that the zone is appropriate for locating this marijuana facility. Pendleton Stewards application meets the barrier test because it is 3,900 feet from the closest public school, and no private schools have been identified in the area. It is more than 1,000 feet from the closest park. It is approximately 3,000 feet from the closest marijuana facility. Therefore, it meets the criteria of Article 16.05 A 1, 2, and 3. Pendleton Stewards application meets the development requirements because the proposed building design will restrict public view of the operations of the facility. And they have also indicated that a site obscuring fence will be installed, further restricting public view. The facility will utilize the same ventilation filtration system as an existing facility. The city has not received any complaints showing the system to be faulty in removal of objectionable odors. Pendleton Stewards has stated that marijuana plants will not be sold, displayed, or grown at the site. The site plan shows the facade of the facility will face Highway 11, the primary right-of-way for this location. Therefore, the criteria have been met for Article 16.05B, A, B, and C. Pendleton Stewards application meets the development requirements because they do not propose a drive-through window at that facility. Okay, now let's talk about marijuana and bus stops. So the city has held 8 hearings regarding marijuana facilities. Multiple sites were regarded as inappropriate by the public because of proximity to bus stops. Bus stops are occupied by children in various numbers, with approximately 700 children in the school system capable of riding a bus to school. Bus stops can fluctuate in location and are based on traffic hazards, student density, bus maneuverability, pedestrian amenities, visibility, and proximity to railroad crossings. They are not based upon what business is next door. Therefore, it could be located next to a bar. Pendleton legalized the sale of marijuana inside city limits. Pendleton chose time, place, and manner restrictions on location of marijuana facilities. The city reviewed these time, place, and manner restrictions in 2016 and again in 2019. At neither time did the city choose to include bus stops within the place restrictions for marijuana facilities. The criterion is to mitigate, not eliminate negative impacts. Children will encounter marijuana facilities within Pendleton, whether on a bus, in a family car, or using a personal mode of transportation, regardless of location. The most contentious hearing involved a busy school bus stop and was approved based on conditions placed to provide adequate mitigation. Those were a site obscuring fencing and sign visibility restriction. Pendleton Stewards application includes site obscuring fencing, an opening at 8 a.m., narrow roof high windows, and restricted signage to Northeast Highway 11. So no sign will be on Northeast Riverside. Mr. Krensler, he represents Pendleton Stewards. He testified how the proposed fencing would prevent children from seeing the facility. He recognizes that there is a bus stop in the area, and he has done his best to mitigate the issue. Fencing will be along Northeast Riverside Avenue, along the backside of the proposed site, and along the north side of the proposed site. So the opening will actually be to the west or Highway 11. From the site plan that I received, it looks like fencing will be around the entire area except the west side. Now we'll talk about illegal drug presence. Ordinance 3902 was passed November 1st, 2016. It was deemed necessary for emergency adoption, and this was placed on there in case at the November 8th, 2016 election, there were 3 ballot measures, and that was just in case the public actually approved those ballot measures. So the city placed legalization of marijuana sales in the Pendleton on the November 8th, 2016 ballot, and the Pendleton voting public adopted legalization of marijuana sales in Pendleton. The council did not make a value judgment regarding the social merit of the sale of marijuana in Pendleton. The public voted to allow marijuana inside city limits. Now we'll talk about the neighborhood. The site is within a commercial district that permits cannabis operations. There is a small portion of commercial land along Highway 11, despite the residential neighborhood, despite the fact that there may be houses within that commercial district. Pre-existing residences existed in this commercial industrial area prior to zoning. And zoning occurred in the 70s or 80s when the zoning for the entire city was approved. No rezoning has occurred in this area. The Highway 11 corridor is a mix of light industrial, commercial, and medium density residential. The subject area is within a service commercial zone. The neighborhood consists of a wrecking yard, auto services, the BP substation, abandoned businesses, and residential dwellings. It is a corridor where industrial type uses meet residential living. You're going to have conflicts no matter what. The city placed time and place manner restrictions. They permit marijuana facilities in the C3 zone. There are locations where commercial and/or industrial zones are adjacent to residential zones. The area has been developed with housing in the commercial zone, and the Planning Commission did find that this zone was appropriate for locating marijuana facilities. Now we'll talk about annexation. Here you can see the application that was applied for annexation. It was taken out by Shane Garten. It was for the purpose of the resale of the property. Here you can see our code for the UDC 15.12 for consent for annexation required. It simply states, in order to reduce interjurisdictional issues, all land use actions inside the joint management area shall carry as a condition of approval that if the property abuts the city limits of the city of Pendleton, the property owner shall provide a consent to the city for annexation. What that means is no matter what went in this location, so it's my understanding that the pre-existing buildings were no longer fit for any type of business. So no matter what type of building was built there, we would have required annexation. State law, ORS 222.174, only statements of consent of annexation which are filed within a 1-year period shall be effective. So councils have 1 year to enact that annexation. And that's exactly what we did. Okay. Now to talk about the flood hazard zone. Here you can see a letter that was received by the city. It's dated January 14th, 2016. It was sent to George Murdoch at the Umatilla County, which was forwarded to us. It is from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Riverview Mobile Estates, which happens to be a neighbor to this particular site, sent in a request for a LOMAR to be approved. Riverview Mobile Estates is proposing a correction to the floodway and floodplain area. So originally that area was under the Confederated Tribes elevation restriction, which was at 0.01 foot for surcharge. And what the Riverview Mobile Estate said is we are within the city limits and therefore we should be held to the 1 foot surcharge instead of the 0.1 foot. What that ended up doing is it ended up kicking this particular property out of the flood zone, making it Zone X. It did nothing for Riverview Mobile Estates except perhaps lower the amount of elevating that they will have to do for their buildings. So in other words, instead of a 6-foot foundation, they may now only have to do a 5-foot foundation. So what ended up happening is we received this letter and it became in effect. The city had nothing to do with this LOMAR. So FEMA adopted the LOMAR, which altered the floodplain, and we were informed about it and brought it into the Zone X or outside the floodplain for this particular site. Okay, so findings. The location is within a C3 service commercial zone. It's 3,900 feet from the closest public school. It's more than 1,000 feet from a park. It's approximately 3,000 feet from the closest marijuana facility, and it still meets Article 16.05 A 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then we can go through again if you want the how the public view of the facility is blocked. It will utilize the same ventilation system. They won't display plants. The facade faces Highway 11. It meets 16.05 B, A, B, and C. There's no drive-through window. Therefore, it meets 16.05 C. Here you can see a letter from a public records request showing that in regards to all of the cannabis locations or retail shops here in town, no one has complained about the odor at any of those shops. Okay, negative impacts. Back in 2019, when Chief Roberts was with us, he did make a presentation to the Planning Commission and possibly the City Council also to discuss some of the issues that the police found according to marijuana. And one of those was objectionable odors. And he stated in there that judging objectionable odor shall be that of an average, reasonable person with ordinary sensibilities after taking into consideration the character of the neighborhood in which the odor is made and the odor is detected. And he is also the one who introduced that all outdoor storage of merchandise, plants, and other materials should be prohibited. Okay, negative impacts. This was testimony that was at the most contentious marijuana retail location due to a bus stop. And at that place, an attorney testified and said the criterion is to mitigate, not eliminate negative impacts. And that is what it states, mitigate. So the findings, again, the filtration system would eliminate objectionable elements. It is the same as being used at Kind Lake marijuana facility. There were no objections for that or no complaints lodged. The school bus location is not a factor, as there are other school bus stops near dispensaries, including the Pendleton cannabis. Therefore, it is not a consideration, nor is it part of the criteria. However, Pendleton stewards proposed a site obscuring fence to further block the view of the facility from Riverside. Again, they propose a solid wall sporting roof-line windows. Let's see, and they will install the fence and landscaping along Northeast Avenue to again further block that view. Traffic safety. The highway curvature and adjacent properties, trees, which shrink the sight distance, may make the Riverside exit, which is a stop-controlled exit, a safer exiting route, given the ability to look farther up, that's north to the right, of Highway 11. Exiting onto Highway 11, turning right, would be a safe exit since a driver can see down south left of Highway 11. Northeast Riverside Avenue is classified as a collector street. It is designed for traffic coming from the local streets, directing it out of the neighborhood. So it is a stop-controlled intersection. Here's the view from the intersection looking north up the hill. You can see how far you have a sight distance. This is from Google Earth. This is not from anyone's windshield. Here's the view from the intersection looking south. And here is from the driveway. Now that view is going to be shortened even more because, as you can see, this Google Earth picture is taken from the west side of the Highway 11 road, not where the property is, which is on the east side. And now you can see the trees and the foliage that actually have grown so much you can't even see the residents in there. But that is the trees and the foliage that the applicant states will block the view and therefore make exiting off of the driveway is the only exiting allowed a dangerous procedure or less safe procedure. Okay, so why intersections are safer? They're more predictable, they have formal controls, they have better sight lines, and they reduce conflict points. So at the Planning Commission, they offered an amendment to staff recommended condition number 8 because having the option for vehicles exit via Northeast Riverside instead of all vehicles leaving directly onto Highway 11 is safer because the Riverside Highway 11 intersection is stop controlled. Okay, now let's talk about the abundance of marijuana. This is not applicable. Code does not require marketing support proof prior to opening of any business. There is one dedicated state contracted liquor store and approximately 20 to 25 other retail locations, which include grocery stores, convenience stores, and local bars that sell alcohol in Pendleton, Oregon. So we can go through the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission reviewed. So site barriers, they have indicated site barrier obscuring fence or landscaping, and the commission did place a condition to ensure that the type of building is constructed with solid walls with high windows. Landscaping, the commission placed a condition for landscaping and fencing, which may help blend the business with the neighborhood and provide additional barriers along Northeast Riverside. Controlled access points. The commission chose not to add a condition that the site uses Highway 11 for its only business access because Northeast Riverside Avenue offered safer traffic access, a controlled point there with better sight distance than the Highway 11 driveway. Lighting. The commission placed a condition on security lighting such that it minimizes casting into the residential areas. It will be directed down and towards the parking area and shielded. Signage. The commission placed a condition that limits the signage manner and or placement. So the applicant has testified that the only signage they will place will be, like you see here, out on Highway 11 and externally lit. So it's essentially just a probably wood. It could be some sort of plastic paneling. It's not an EMC or electronic message center. It's just a ground sign, flat faced, two-sided. Only on Highway 11, nothing on Riverside. The commission then placed a condition to limit potential window openings in the building by restricting placement and size of windows. The reason I'm reading all of this to you is if you adopt the same conditions that the Planning Commission did, this is what you will be adopting. The commission placed a condition to ensure all storage and merchandise is kept indoors. The commission has placed a condition that requires respect for the location of dwellings to the north and east of the site regarding ventilation. Pendleton stewards testify they will utilize the same ventilation system, an upgraded version, as that used at Kindly, for which no odor complaints have been lodged. The commission also felt that a site obscuring fence or landscaping, restriction on sign manner and placement and the roof line windows are enough to block the view of the business. So the council, here's one that you may opt. The council may opt to include a condition that the application or applicant, as in Pendleton stewards, returns to the Planning Commission for review of the building if it is expanded. So currently Pendleton stewards proposes a 30 by 50 building. As far as other conditions go, Pendleton stewards indicates that at least 10 parking spaces will be provided on site. Circulation will allow the vehicles to exit the site facing traffic rather than backing out onto traffic. Delivery of product and merchandise will occur during daytime hours. Security will meet OLCC measures and controls. Stormwater review is typically a requirement of the parking lot engineering review, and the application will require an engineering application for new development. So stormwater will be reviewed by the city engineer. Okay, so here are some findings the council may choose to make after they have heard all testimony. They may choose to state whether it is or is not within a zone that allows marijuana retailers, that it is or is not more than 1,000 feet from another marijuana facility, that it is or is not more than 1,000 feet from any public or private school, park, community recreation facility attended primarily by persons under the age of 18. I can pull these up at the end of the testimony if you choose. And then here are also other ones, whether or not it will have a solid wall and that solid wall creates a barrier, or the council can place a condition that the structure will have a solid wall that creates a barrier. That the ventilation for the facility is adequate, or you may place a condition to have that type of ventilation. That no products will be, that products will or will not be blocked from public view, or you can place that condition on there and refer to, again, the site obscuring fencing, the solid wall structure, and so forth. That the site plan does or does not place the primary face towards Highway 11, meeting the criterion, and whether or not if there's an indication that there's a drive-through window. And whether or not those conditions are or are not necessary for protection of the neighborhood and are prudent to address the potential negative impacts. And then I will also pull up the motions at that time if you desire. And that is the conclusion of my staff report.
Do we have any specific questions for Julie or other staff at this time? Okay, we'll start with Brett.
So you mentioned about halfway through that the commission had asked for some further conditions. So the items we went through, such as restrictive fencing, were those further conditions?
So further conditions tend to be like parking, and so it would actually be here, parking, delivery, security, stormwater. So those are other conditions that can be placed on a conditional use. And the commission felt that in the conditions approved by them under the conditional use application were adequate.
Okay, so there's no further conditions.
No, none beyond that. However, the council, if they chose, can place an additional one that if the facility is enlarged, it has to come back to the planning commission.
Okay, Linda.
If you mentioned this, I didn't catch it. So are there conditions regarding proximity from marijuana distribution area to residential properties?
Are you asking if we already have criteria that places distributions away from residential neighborhoods? Mm-hmm. We do not have that criteria. We have 1,000 feet from a park or a community recreation facility or another marijuana facility. And what's the first one? Schools. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Julie?
I have a question.
Okay, Steve.
Was the petition submitted with a list of signatures on the petition against the allowance for this marijuana facility?
If you're asking
The appellants, did they present a list of the signatures on the petition? Do we know how many people signed the petition?
I do not know how many people signed the petition. I believe it was presented at the appeals hearing, which is this one,
Okay.
and not at the planning commission hearing.
Thank you.
There were a number of people who did testify at that hearing, though.
Okay, John.
Mine's a zoning question. When you showed the map of the area, the different zones, it showed Mount Hebron as R1 and Riverside as R2. What is the difference between R1 and R2?
So it's really a matter of density when it comes to R1 and R2. So the R1 zone allows 1 to 4 units per acre, and the R2 allows, I think it's, I'm going to say 4, but it could be a few more than that, to 18.
Okay, so higher density.
Yes.
Okay, thank you,
Yes,
Julie.
but they both allow single unit homes.
Okay.
And at some point in time, the homes that are currently in the commercial zone were allowed to be in that location.
They were pre-existing.
Okay.
If today someone wanted to present a home in the C3 or service commercial zone, it would have to be a multifamily or multi-unit housing.
Any additional questions for Julie at this point? She's not going anywhere. So if we have a question for her later, we can ask, but. Okay, thank you, Julie.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the point in time where we're first going to hear from the appellants and as well as the applicants. So I know that you're both in the room. We're going to start with the appellants, so those that are in support of the appeal. If you're wanting to come up, you do not have a time restriction. So I'm giving you a little bit of time to be able to share any information that you would like with the council in addition to what's in your what has already been submitted in your testimony. So I know we have two different appellants. So if either one of you would like to come up, this is also a time I know a few of you have legal representation. If you'd like to come up with them as well, this would be the time. So I don't know, the Hancocks or, okay, we'll start with Aaron.
Hi, Mayor and member of City Council. Kindly and myself are actually represented, but I did want to give a short testimony. When I was speaking in front of the planning department, I brought to the table a matter and then they asked questions back. And unfortunately, they weren't answered correctly. And I get it. Everything's hard to find on the city website, but I want to make sure that this is clarified. First, I'm going to read, and I will send this later, but this comes from an email from Julie to Brandon on July 14th, 2025. And on here it says, the bar is across the street from a bus stop. Although the code does not eliminate it because of the bus stop, my concern would be traffic control off Highway 11 at a busy intersection. And the city did reject another proposed marijuana retail store that was across the street from a bus stop. The people spoke out against that location very heavily, so it may play into this location as well. I will forward that to you guys. I do own Kind Leaf Pendleton. I am the managing member, but I was born and raised here, and I care about the community, the safety of the children in the community, and that is part of the reason that I appealed this. Bryson Thurman owns Thirst Smoke Shop. He's been invested into our community for many years. His location was the proposed location on Tudawilla Road that was contested by the neighborhood and denied on the basis of whatever limitations for the bus stop being right next to it. If it wasn't denied, they placed such heavy sanctions on it that he decided to relocate out here on highway, whatever it is right there. I brought that up and the planning department asked about the bus stop location next to the 4 existing dispensaries in Pendleton. And it was reported back to them that Thur's location currently has a bus stop across the street on 17th. I have submitted the map and the route to off of the Pendleton School District website, and that is not true. The bus stop is on 17th and Byers, clear down towards the river across from the railroad tracks. So there are no bus stops by any current of the 4 marijuana shops. And there is a bus stop 65 feet from the parking lot of the proposed location. There's also a city pickup spot for the pool bus that's provided by the city for the kids to ride in the summer. And that sits on the corner of their lot. And I have done, and I thank the members of the city that had to do all the work to collect the public information that I requested. But there are years worth of proof of substantial increased crime associated with all 4 of us, of our dispensaries, from hard drugs on the ground to prostitution to kids coming up to grown-ups and encouraging them to buy cannabis for them at these shops. And we have gathered all that information and submitted it to you so to make it easy for you. But with all that being said, with another location invested into our community that already had to move and substantial documentation with increased crime, I don't believe that these types of locations fit into a residential community with heavily involved children congregating in the neighborhood because there's so much residential. It's right by a trailer park. It has a school bus 65 feet right from the entrance of the parking lot. It has the city school bus in an area where parents are working and kids are hopping on that bus to ride the school bus in summer. I just think that you should think strongly about what I'm bringing to the table with my attorney, because there is a way it doesn't fit into that neighborhood. And that is all I have for you today. And thank you for giving me time.
Philip.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is John Dennis, and I represent Kindleaf Pendleton LLC. The matter before you all today, in some ways, is a matter of straightforward interpretation of the Pendleton City Code. Earlier, we heard from Ms. Chase, who has described a number of relevant considerations for you all to review and evaluate in making a decision today. But we didn't hear literally all relevant considerations. And so I'd like to bring to your attention today a couple of them that weren't cited in the staff report. The first is primarily the Uniform Development Code, or UDC. I'll refer to it a few times throughout my presentation today. UDC section 11.06.03, paragraph C. And that is a section of the code that describes the requirements for any type of conditional use permit that may be sought, not just those related to marijuana businesses. But that section reads, and I quote, "In order to grant any conditional use, the Planning Commission, or in this case on appeal, the City Council, must find, based upon evidence, both factual and supportive, provided by the applicant, that any negative impacts of the proposed use on adjacent properties and on the public can be mitigated through the application of ordinance standards or other reasonable conditions of approval." A few parts of this that really deserve some unpacking. First off, this applies to any negative impacts, right? That's very broad and very sweeping. And it includes use on adjacent properties and on the public at large. And so these have to be mitigated. And this is where I want to spend most of the time today. As Ms. Chase correctly identifies, mitigation does not mean total elimination, but it is somewhat of an ambiguous term that you all will have to, you're responsible for both interpreting and applying here tonight. Mitigation essentially means reduce, But the question is, what level of reduction of the risks and harms is needed in order for you all to approve the permit tonight? So I'm going to give a somewhat extreme example, but I hope it illustrates the point. If there were a conditional use that were proposed that would result in the death of 100 people every 5 years, you could say, if the developer were to reduce that by 5 people, he will have literally mitigated the impacts of his proposed use. But that isn't going to be adequate or sufficient, I would hope, for the council to say that's been mitigated, even though it technically, by the dictionary definition of the word mitigate, would satisfy that term. Similarly, if people were to be maimed and disfigured permanently, even though it's not death, it is technically mitigating. So the question that you all are charged with answering today is, what is a reasonable degree of mitigation that has to occur in order for you to feel comfortable as you exercise your discretion as essentially the judges in this case to decide that you do or do not want to allow this operation to open right beside a school bus stop. The bus stop, it bears mentioning, it's K through 12, and there's 4 buses that run to and from that location every day, 4 trips, I should say. K through 5 comes there in the morning and drops kids off in the afternoon, as well as 6 through 12. So 4 stops each day. So going back to this term mitigate, right? It's not defined in the code. And the reason for that is the code doesn't want to be overly prescriptive. This is a discretionary decision that you all have to make. So because it's not prescriptive, there are other contexts within the code that helps to elaborate on what this might mean. And so on the code, UDC 11.06.01 describes, again, this is for all types of conditional use permits, not just marijuana. Because of their unusual characteristics or the special characteristics of the area in which they are to be located, conditional uses require special consideration so that they may be properly located with respect to the objectives of this ordinance and the effect on surrounding properties. So again, this is a discretionary evaluation that looks at the objectives of the ordinance and the effect on surrounding properties. So with respect to what the objectives of the ordinance are, on its cannabis regulations, the ordinance is incredibly clear. At 16.01, that's of the Unified Development Code, 16.01, it says the express purpose of the city's marijuana rules, quote, is to minimize adverse impacts on adjacent properties, schools, and other places where children congregate, and other land uses potentially incompatible with such facilities. That's the express purpose of the marijuana code. It doesn't just say only schools and parks. It says other places where kids congregate. So you would be upholding the policy decision in the purposes of the code by refusing to allow a dispensary to open right across the street from a place where children gather and wait each morning and where they disperse frequently unsupervised in the afternoon each day. So going to the materials that were submitted today, my exhibits A and B particularly describe hundreds of complaints that have been received by dispatch, and many of them have resulted in arrests and prosecutions for crimes that occur at dispensaries. This list of crimes, and I tried to create like a simple digest because it's literally hundreds of pages of files, and I provided the full text in case you're curious and want to read into them, but I tried to make it simple so you could catch the gist of it without having to spend hours and hours, but it's all there if you want to read it, and I would actually encourage you to read it. But they span a wide range of types of behaviors, things like public nudity, public urination, public intoxication, public use of drugs and drinking of alcohol, lots of erratic behaviors by people. It's either frequently, we don't really know for sure from the reports we have, homeless individuals, people who may be high on substances, or they may be having like a mental health crisis. And whatever the explanation is, they're erratic behaviors that are frequently aggressive and not even necessarily pointed at anyone in particular, generalized to passersby. There's a wide range, and I think the documents speak for themselves, so I won't really belabor them too tremendously. But they do include physical violence, and they also include people shouting, cursing in the public, and of most concerning from my perspective is driving under the influence of alcohol, people seen drinking beer in cars of dispensary parking lots, people seen smoking in parking lots and getting right behind the wheel, people also bags of drugs found in the parking lot, frequently meth. I think there was an incident where law enforcement suspected it was fentanyl. Just randomly in the parking lot, in the store, outside, several instances of that. Two things I want to draw about these crimes is first off, like Ms. Purchase mentioned, this is all 4 dispensaries that are currently here. There's no logical reason to think that this would not be happening at a 5th dispensary that would open up that you might approve here tonight. And it's not a condemnation that these don't belong in the city, but for the particular charge of figuring out where these should be located, which is the unique question tonight, that doesn't bode well for the intersection of that in a public school children, a place where school children gather. The second thing that I want to draw out from those records is that these crimes and the types of undesirable behaviors aren't limited within the dispensary parking lot. Frequently, these things spill out into the yards, into the sidewalks, and very often into the streets of the area that surround it. So these, there's been talk about a site obscuring fence and site obscuring landscaping as the potential mitigation efforts. But when you're talking about people drinking beer in their car and driving away, or people smoking in their cars and driving, the question is, what is a site obscuring fence going to do for that? And I don't think that that is something that could be reasonably mitigated here. A couple of other things I'll just say, and I'll wrap up here. The Pendleton Stewards LLC has been saying since the beginning of this process that they are intending to partner with a group called Oregon's Finest. And they've been described as a reputable brand that is, highest standards of ethics and all this kind of thing. And yet we have 2 documented instances where undercover state agents went in and purchased marijuana, and they were underage. So we have 2 violations that are already on the record where they're selling to underage people. So that also creates some additional concerns with its very close proximity to dispensaries and the fact that the records show several instances of children attempting to buy marijuana, and in some cases apparently being successful through use of third-party proxies coming into the dispensary on their behalf. The person seeking to have a conditional use permit here does bear the burden of proof on each of these matters. It is not for the council or for us to kind of make the case for them. They have to present evidence showing that they are mitigating any negative impacts that this may have on the adjacent properties or on the public. And in this case, when you have a wide range of types of behaviors, crimes of all different varieties, the question is, how are they going to be able to mitigate those? Particularly in light of the fact that these behaviors and these adverse impacts are already crimes that carry criminal sanction, threat of enforcement, threat of prosecution. What kind of terms can the city impose on a permit that's going to stop these behaviors from happening and spreading out into the neighborhood when these things already carry with them, many of them, the possibility of jail time and incarceration? So with that, I'd remind the council that today's review is a de novo review, which legally means that you're not required to give deference to any prior decision that was made by the Planning Commission. This is a case of novel interpretation by this group. So we would ask that you all take these things under consideration. And we would hope that you'll find that however well intended the applicant here today is, that this particular location with its close proximity immediately across the street from a bus stop and on the same property as a transit stop that we should say takes people to the aquatic center and you know on a daily basis during the summer. This is not the right location for a dispensary. We would ask that you not grant the permit today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and do we have anyone with the other appellant that would like to provide any additional comment that is not the written testimony? Okay. Mr. Peel, if you could just come up, please, and state your first and last name for the record. And I take it you're one of the affected property owners.
I'm not a property owner there. I live out just past this property. I drive by it every day, several
So
times.
there will be a time for general public
Oh.
comment, but this is for the people
Madam
who
Mayor.
filed the appeal as well.
Good.
Yes.
I thought you were just asking for,
Mr. Peel has been authorized by a property owner
Oh, okay.
that is affected to speak on his behalf.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you for that opportunity. And thank you, council members and Mayor McDonald for your service to our community. You know, you are doing a fine job being elected to represent the people of this city. And I would ask you to think, you know, there's a lot of technicalities, a lot of, you know, it's obvious to me that a very thorough job has been done in investigating all of the avenues that represent themselves with this issue. I think it boils in a way down to a fact that I would like to ask you as members of our city council representing the people of Pendleton. What advantage and what are the general feeling of the people? Are you representing, you know, obviously you can go to line C, subsection B and say, you know, it meets those recommendations. But in the long run, in your clear conscience, is this something we need in Pendleton? I would submit that this city is already adequately supplied with the opportunity to buy marijuana. The people of our state and the people of Pendleton have signed and decided that it's okay to sell marijuana here in our town. And we have a lot of people coming in to buy. So we get traffic in and out of our town. But with the number of facilities that already exist, do we need another facility? And does it need to be in that position? A lot of work has been done up and down Riverside, and I don't believe any of those people surveyed really stood in favor of this facility happening in that position. So I would ask that you consider this, consider the fact that, and ask yourself the question, are we already adequately supplying the need? And do we need another one? And is this site a good site to do that? I have questions about some issues that occurred in the changing of the zoning. It happened just barely in time to meet the deadline. And the river, we all know how high the water got when we couldn't drive across that road, and that the wrecking yard was inundated with water, and the houses there, in fact, they had to demolish that existing facility because it was ruined by the flood. So how can we say it's not in a floodplain? That really, to me, is like, I don't know about that. Anyway, thank you for the fine job that you all do in serving the people of Pendleton. And I just ask you to consider your conscience in making this decision. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, do we have any additional appellants? Okay, now would be the time to hear from the applicant and any additional people that you have here to speak on your behalf.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Brandon Krenzler. I am the applicant and respondent in this matter. The appeal of my conditional use permit for Oregon's Finest Pendleton at 406 Northeast Highway 11. Let me begin by framing the question properly because the appellates have worked to obscure it. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Your decision must rest on the applicable approval criteria in the UDC and on nothing else. 6 weeks ago, the Planning Commission applied those criteria to this application. It heard the same neighbors and business owners and the same attorney now before you. And on a full record, it approved the permit, finding unanimously that the barrier test criteria are satisfied and finding 4-1 that every identified impact can be mitigated through conditions of approval. The appellants have not identified a single approval criterion that is unmet. They have resubmitted the same preferences and asked this body to reweigh them, and that is not a basis for reversal. The operative question remains, what was it before the commission? Does this application satisfy the criteria of the code? It does, and the record does demonstrate that. The appellate's entire case rests on a misstatement of the governing standard. They would have you believe that the code requires me to prove the absence of any impact whatsoever, that odor be eliminated entirely, that no minor ever lay eyes on a customer, that the character of the neighborhood remain frozen in place. And that is not the standard. UDC 11.6.03 asks whether negative impacts of the use can be mitigated, reduced to an acceptable level through the application of ordinance standards and reasonable conditions of approval. And the operative word is mitigated, not elimination. No use could satisfy an elimination standard, not a tavern, which previously existed, not an automotive shop, not a convenience store, each of which is permitted as of right on this very parcel area. The code does not demand the impossible, it demands mitigation, and the commission found on substantial evidence that I have met it. You will hear probably a few others speak tonight about the volume of opposition. I know there's a petition, a tally of letters, and an assertion that the neighborhood is uniformly against this, but that petition does not reflect those who are in favor of it in that neighborhood. I do not discount the sincerity of those residents, but sentiment is not a criterion. A petition of signatures and a single letter of opposition carry identical legal weight. They are material only insofar as they identify a specific criterion that is unmet and articulate why no condition can address it. The opposition does not do that. Indeed, one of the appeals concedes the point in its own words. The objection is, and I quote, not about the use of cannabis, it's about the business model and its clientele and location. and that is a statement of preference. A preference, however widely held, is not cognizable basis for denial under any provision of this code. First, odor. The appellants contend that I am categorically ineligible because I cannot guarantee the total elimination of all odor. The contention fails on 3 independent grounds. 1, they recite only half of the operative standard. The code does not require zero emission absolute. It requires that objectionable odors be rendered undetectable at the property line, or in the alternative, that the facility employ air filtration, which, to the greatest extent feasible, confines those odors to the premises, measured by the standard of a reasonable person of ordinary sensibilities. That is, by its plain terms, a mitigation standard. And filtration is precisely the measure I have committed to install. 2, the record refutes the premise. At my request, the Pendleton Police Department reviewed calls for service at every cannabis business in the city dating to my original opening at Kindleaf in 2017. It found no complaints concerning odor, ventilation, or nuisance. The third, the filtration system I intend to install is identical in systems in operation currently at Kindleaf, which is one of the very parties appealing this decision using odor as a standard. The appellants thus ask you to find, as a matter of fact, that this system cannot contain odor while they themselves have operated the same system for years without a single complaint on record. Their own facility is a refutation of their argument. The bus stop. The appellants devote considerable attention to the school bus stop across Riverside, its precise distance, the number of children, the schedule. None of it bears on the approval criteria. For a dispositive reason, a bus stop is not protected use under the code. The 1,000-foot separation requirement applies to schools, parks, and other marijuana facilities. There is no bus stop setback to satisfy and therefore none to violate. This is not my characterization. It is the city's settled interpretation with more than one meeting. When these criteria were adopted, staff and the commission expressly determined that bus stops are not a siting consideration precisely because they are mobile. They relocate to wherever children happen to congregate. The city cannot and did not attempt to zone around a moving target. And other dispensaries have bus stops near them. The most compelling evidence that proximity to children has never functioned as a barrier comes from the appellants themselves. Kindleaf at 1733 Southwest Court Avenue occupies, owns, and rents to Epic Martial Arts at 1743, the adjacent unit approximately 60 feet away. Epic Martial Arts serves children as young as 4, with youth instruction nearly every weekday afternoon. Kindleaf's cannabis signage and its promotional board face the public street, adjacent to the Chipotle, which is also frequented by adolescents. If a martial arts academy serving young children 60 feet away does not disqualify the appellant's own dispensary, and it never has, then a bus stop 65 feet away from my site cannot, as a matter of fact of law or fact, disqualify mine. The appellants raised no objection to that arrangement. They raise it now only because the permit is mine and the bus stop is one they do not actually own. For neighborhood suitability, the appellants argue that the use is incompatible with residential setting, but the city has already resolved that question legislatively. This parcel is zoned C3 service commercial, and the code expressly authorizes cannabis retail in that zone through the conditional use process. A general statement of purpose does not override a specific zoning designation, and neighborhood preference cannot accomplish a rezoning from the public podium. The city did in fact vote yes on cannabis within our city limits. The appellates invoke statewide planning goal 12 and suggest that denial would discourage normalization of marijuana. With respect, goal 12 is the transportation planning goal. It governs transportation systems and the needs of transportation for disadvantage. It supplies no applicable approval criterion for this permit, and a land use decision must rest on the standards of the code it actually imposes. It cannot be denied on generalized policy where specific criteria are satisfied. As for the annexation, one appeal alleges the city annexed this property to facilitate a cannabis use and characterizes that as collusion. The record does not support that allegation, and the sequence event forecloses it. The annexation was filed by the prior owner for the stated purpose of resale. The annexation of the parcel was a condition of the purchase of the property, which is a routine prerequisite to closing the transaction, and not an accommodation arranged on my behalf. The city's role is ministerial under its joint management agreement with Umatilla County, and any land use action within the urban growth boundary requires annexation. The state affirmatively encourages the annexation of parcels already served by municipal utilities, as this one was. There was no arrangement between the city and myself because none was necessary. Collusion is an accusation, not a criterion, and is wholly unsupported by the record. I want to correct a mischaracterization that I found in the documents provided by the city upon appeal. The appellant suggests that I am resistant to reasonable conditions, but the opposite is true, and the record bears it out. Highway 11 is and will remain the primary customer access. The commission has authorized a controlled Riverside exit because the Riverside Highway 11 intersection is stop controlled. Staff concurred that it is, in fact, a safer movement. That was a determination grounded in safety. I'm going to reflect upon an email I need to bring up on my phone here. I've been in touch with Rick Stanton. He's the region traffic investigator in this area responsible for conducting speed zone investigations, and we have begun the preliminary steps to lower the speed limit in that area directly in front of our facility. I did agree before the commission to an 8 o'clock opening to address morning pickup, and I will honor that commitment regardless of this body's decision tonight. I wish the record to reflect, however, that I do not believe any criterion requires it. No other licensed dispensary in Pendleton operates under a city-imposed morning restriction, including Thurs and High Desert Cannabis, both of which sit near residential areas surrounded by houses. A flat morning closure would apply throughout the summer and every school recess when no children are transported at all. I therefore raise the issue to preserve it, and I respectfully ask the council to reconsider that condition, and if it agrees that no criterion compels it, to potentially strike it. Every other condition I accept without reservation. The site obscuring fencing, the building design, the limitation on lighting and signage, the irrevocable LID consent, daytime only deliveries, comprehensive cameras, inventory controls, and the locking security gate on the Riverside Avenue during non-operating hours. That is not the posture of myself seeking the minimum. It is a standard of care that I maintained at my previous business for 7 years and intend to do so as I move forward with this one. The appellants do ask you to imagine harms. I ask you to examine the evidence. 7 years of operating kindly with a clean facility and no substantiated complaints. Oregon's finest and continuous operation since 2012, including in Portland's Pearl District with residential neighbors in immediate proximity. And the police department's own records reflecting no odor or nuisance complaint at any dispensary within the city in nearly a decade. This body does not need to speculate about the kind of operator I am. It has had the opportunity to measure my word against my conduct in this community for years. The application satisfies every applicable threshold under Articles 4, 11, and 16 of the City Code. This site is properly zoned, properly separated from every protected use, and designed to meet or exceed the structural and operational requirements. The appellants have not demonstrated that the commission misapplied any criterion. They have demonstrated only a preference for a different use, and that is not a matter upon which this body may act. I bear the burden of proof, and I accept it. The record comprising the zoning, the separations, the design, the conditions, filtration, and the city's own complaint-free history with that system discharges that burden. I respectfully request that the council deny both appeals, affirm the decision of the Planning Commission, and approve my conditional use permit. Upon listening to some of the appellant's current testimonies talking about crime in the neighborhood or surrounding dispensaries, while I was running kindly, I had very little of that exposure at my dispensary. I paid attention to my cameras, and anytime I saw anything that shouldn't be taking place at or around my facility, I immediately acted and quelled it. Children gathering. Again, I'd like to present epic martial arts where children gather every day of the year. The list of crimes the attorney presented also occur at bars and at our general stores in town, along the levee and around town. They brought up the minor stings performed by the OLCC in Portland at my business partner's facilities. Those never took place when I ran Kindleaf for a variety of controls that I put into place. His facilities were ran by employees and managers, and sometimes people will make mistakes. So being participant in the business is always an acceptable measure of mitigation for that risk. As for Dewey's, which were brought up in previous testimony, this bus stop existed when there was a bar that served intoxicants on site, meaning that every vehicle that left that facility had somebody under the influence. We also do not sell alcohol, or will not sell alcohol either, at this dispensary. That's all I have. Thank you for your time tonight. I have one of my other partners here who would like to make a statement, as he is.
Are there any questions for Mr. Prenzler?
Would you please reiterate the one criteria that you would like us to reconsider?
The one criteria I'd like you to reconsider is the 8 a.m. opening time restriction. Dispensaries in the state of Oregon are allowed to be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I agreed on the 8 a.m. restriction, hoping to have the CUP granted to us. However, after learning about the age of the general demographic of Epic Martial Arts, I felt that restriction might not be a fair application to my facility, as other dispensaries in town are also allowed to be open earlier, which would create an undue burden upon our potential sales and staffing, giving them the hours they need. The only concern that was brought up that resulted in that stipulation was the fact that there is a bus stop near us. And that's why I presented. To the contrary, there is also a facility next to another shop in town that has minors regularly present who are allowed to be open all hours that the OLCC permits.
But you would prefer opening at 7 a.m.?
We would prefer to open at 7 a.m. and be allowed what the law allows every other shop. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions? Okay, your partner is allowed. You're good to come up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and concerned citizens. My name is Scott Bartholomew. My wife and I own Third Odyssey LLC, which is the owner of the property located at Riverside and Highway 11, formerly known as the Corral Tavern. I respectfully submit my statement in support of the approval and operation of the proposed cannabis dispensary at that location. First and foremost, this application should be evaluated on the facts, the applicable law, and established approval criteria, not on emotion, not on stigma, or the preferences of competing businesses. The property in question is located within the city limits and is subject to the city's zoning regulations. Some of the surrounding residents have voiced their opposition to a cannabis dispensary being allowed to operate at that location. While their opinions deserve to be heard and respected, the legal standards governing this property are clearly established by the city and its land use regulations. This property has already undergone review and was granted a conditional use permit. That approval was not granted casually. It was awarded because we demonstrated compliance with the applicable criteria and because no substantial evidence existed showing that the proposed use would create impacts beyond those already contemplated by city zoning regulations. The fact that the CUP was approved by the city's planning commission indicates that the proposal met the standards established by law. The existence of 4 dispensaries within the community is not by itself a valid reason to prohibit a 5th, a 6th, or whatever number. Zoning and established criteria will make that determination. Communities routinely support multiple businesses of the same type, including restaurants, bars, pharmacies, grocery stores, convenience stores, and other retail establishments. Competition benefits consumers by encouraging better customer service improved product selection, innovation, and competitive pricing. Existing businesses do not possess a right to be protected from lawful competition. It's also important to recognize that Oregon has regulated cannabis businesses for several years now. Modern dispensaries are highly regulated retail establishments subject to state licensing requirements, security standards, inventory tracking, age verification requirements or surveillance systems, age verification requirements, and air filtration systems and strict operating procedures. These businesses are not the source of the fears and the stereotypes that often accompany discussions about cannabis. Numerous studies and years of practical experience have demonstrated that licensed dispensaries can operate safely and responsibly within their communities. The proposed dispensary will contribute to our economy through employment opportunities, property improvements, ongoing tax revenue, and increased commercial activity. Development of the site represents an investment in the community by transforming an underutilized, neglected property into productive commercial use consistent with city zoning and planning goals. The appeals filed against this project should be evaluated on evidence, not speculation. Likewise, a petition opposing the dispensary, regardless of the number of signatures collected, does not constitute evidence that the application fails to meet the applicable approval criteria. Opinion cannot be a substitute for legal standards. If a proposed use satisfies the requirements established by the city, then approval should be based on those standards, which is why we have them. Finally, concerns about personal disputes between business competitors should carry absolutely no weight in the decision-making process. Land use decisions should never be used as a tool to advantage one private business over another or to bar a business from entering the market. The purpose of the permitting process is to determine whether a proposed use complies with the law, not to shield existing operators from competition or to resolve private disagreements. At its core, the matter before you tonight is about fairness, it's about consistency, and it's about equal treatment under the law. The use is permitted through the established approval process. We've demonstrated compliance with the applicable standards. This project will provide economic benefits, jobs, consumer choice, and lawful commercial activity. And it's for these reasons we are asking that the appeals be denied and that the dispensary be allowed to proceed open for business and serve the community under the same rules that apply to every other licensed cannabis dealer. That concludes my statement. If you folks have any questions of me, I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Any questions?
Thank you very much for your time and consideration. It's appreciated.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now will be the point in time when we will take comment from the general public that is here on these issues. As per our standards, we'll first hear from those that are in favor of the proposal, or in this case, the appeal. That will be the time designated for those, and then we will have an opportunity for those that are against the appeal. It's kind of it's an interesting play on words there, but if you are here in support of the appellants who we heard from before, this will be the time for you to speak. So if you would like to come up, yes. Are they in the public, in the meeting online?
Yes.
Okay, so before we do that, we will go to the attorney as well. If Donna could just make sure that they're unmuted and they state their name for the record. Sorry, I didn't catch that before.
Oh,
No, yeah. Can you say something so we can hear you? Michael, you need to unmute yourself.
Good. All right, I've got that option. Very good. Thank you. Good evening, city councilors, Madam Mayor. My name is Michael Hughes. I'm an attorney in Bend, Oregon. I represent Mr. Bartholomew, and I would just like to give some brief statements in opposition to the appeal. I will keep them brief because the actual approval that the Planning Commission did is very complete. The staff report tonight was very complete. The staff presentation detailed how the zoning and other criteria were met by the applicant. And so I think that much is clear. Obviously, there are some concerns from citizens, and as an attorney who's been doing this now for these OLCC licenses for over a decade now, we constantly see these concerns, and it's important for the representatives of the people to hear these concerns and then make sure their decisions are based on the criteria. And in this particular case, I'm looking at it's almost 3 pages of conditions that will apply to the approval. And I believe if you look at those, most of those are mitigating or in some cases alleviating the comments or concerns that have been presented by the citizens. And I think concerns about the children and the drug use and some of those other concerns are mitigated by the state regulations that have been mentioned before. Obviously, these aren't like a bar. There's no consumption on site. Nobody under 21 is allowed in the premises. And these sort of state regulations help mitigate some of the concerns that people have about marijuana retailers. And I will say that there was some citation of some failed stings, but if you look at the OLCC statistics, a vast majority of retailers pass those stings and don't sell to people without proper ID or don't sell to underage people. And that's, again, based on the strong state regulations that are in place. And so I believe in this particular matter that the applicant has met their criteria. It appears that these 3 pages of conditions are going to help alleviate and mitigate most of the concerns. And it appears to me that we'll be revamping a building that was probably in ill repair and needed to be replaced. And this is what cities have to do. I'm from Nebraska. If we didn't rebuild buildings, the 7-Eleven would be in a sod house. So, I mean, we have to constantly update the inventory in these cities to make sure that the city is staying modern and that we have modern buildings in place. And that looks like this is happening in this case. And the most important thing that is happening is competition. And whenever I speak throughout Oregon, I preface my statements by saying I'm not going to apologize by being a capitalist and a free market capitalist. And I believe competition is important. As one of the attorneys who helped change these laws in this state and other states, I did it not just so a few group of people can make money selling weed. I did it for the consumers, so the consumers would have product that's tested, product that's safe, so consumers could go to regulated businesses that were run by business people and operated in a safe fashion. That's why we legalize cannabis, is for the consumer. And competition definitely benefits the consumer. I don't care if it's a gas station, if it's a grocery store, if it's a bar, if it's a liquor store. Competition is always good for the consumer. And one thing competition does, and I was a bit startled to hear the stories from my colleague about the crimes around these dispensaries, but I think you'll find those are crimes that are around any sort of retail business that's open. But, in Bend, we have somewhere north of 25 dispensaries and a very robust set of competition. And what you'll find is that the bad players and the people who don't run their business in a certain way don't make it. They don't survive. They close. And the operators that make sure that there's no nonsense going on in their parking lot, that monitor their cameras, that if they do see something going on, they go out and say, hey, get out of here. You can't be drinking beer in the parking lot. You can't be smoking weed in the parking lot. Get the hell out of here. I'm calling the cops. Those operators stay in business. And that's what competition develops. It develops this environment where bad operators, they can't survive and they'll fail. And the good operators and the people that are abiding by the law will succeed. And so that's the most important thing, is competition. Competition will bring out the best in businesses, and competition is very good for the consumer. And this is an example where there might be a little more competition amongst the different dispensaries, but that's good for the consumers, and the dispensaries that rise to the top and operate their business in a way that they should will succeed. And based on all that, and based on the report, it appears that the criteria are met. And I believe that the appeal should be denied and the application should be approved. And I'm available for any questions if the counselors or mayor have them.
Has any? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that the last speaker on behalf? Okay, so now we're going to move into public comment. Those that would like to speak in favor of the appeal, now is the time. You can signify by raising your hand or raising your hand online. So I can see the gentleman in the back. So we will start. If you could come up to the podium, we'll start with one here in person. Assistant City Manager Byram has become my official timekeeper now. So he will let you know when your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Reuter. I have loved this area, this community for a long time, and I used to live here, moved out in 2019, lived in and have still property by one of the dispensaries. The reason for moving out was simply because what he stated was true. Good, responsible dispensary owners will push people off of their parking lots and properties right into like my front yard, where they are doing stuff with, and that's why I had to go out every morning and in the evening and pick up needles out of my front yard. So my 5-year-old at the time wasn't playing with stuff like that when he's out and just trying to enjoy our yard. The streets out there. Safety is concerned. That's what he said. Safety, public safety. And having another dispensary near another residential neighborhood isn't safe. Just point blank. Safety is the utmost concern for you guys. And good, responsible owners of these businesses. I work security for Letterbuck, other establishments in town. We do keep the bad element away and out of the business. But as soon as they're on the sidewalk, that's the police department's job. As soon as they're off our property, not our problem anymore. I've lived it for over 20 years in this area. You're right. Safety is the #1 concern. And responsible business owners do make sure the bad element isn't on their property. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else that would like to speak in support of the appeal? Okay, please state your name for the record.
My name is Eddie James Antonello. I live at 1104 Southwest 37th Street here in Pendleton, Oregon. I would like to speak in favor of the appeal because I feel like to find an appropriate place to put this 5th cannabis dispensary, which I'm in support of, away from schools, away from, public, residential areas is very important. It's very crucial to the safety of our public. And I feel that, I feel children should not have this, cannabis. It's not for children. It's illegal, and I feel this is a step in the right direction. This is what we need. This is what we need to go towards as a goal, to put the cannabis, this 5th cannabis dispensary in an appropriate place, appropriate area, to have a designated area to put it in that is appropriate for such a business is what we need and is what the city needs, and is a step in the right direction. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak in support of the appeal? Okay, you could please come up to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Debbie Powell. I live on Riverside and we have a business on the other side of Highway 11. me personally, I don't want this in my backyard. Do you want one in your backyard? I think Pendleton has plenty. I think Pendleton needs something, I don't know, maybe more grocery stores rather than 5 pot stores, 2 grocery stores. I think there's a lot of better businesses that you could bring in. Don't know what those are, but, and I also feel that bringing that in, we have a lot of shady people already that go up and down Riverside coming in from town, there's a lot of them in town. That's gonna bring more of that kind of people wandering around our neighborhood, which is already at plenty. My other issue, they keep bringing up the bar that was there. That bar had been derelict for probably 20 years with maybe 3 residents there. Bars are not constant people in and out all day long from 7 in the morning to however late they're going to be open. Access from Riverside onto Highway 11. The majority of us are leaving from Riverside Avenue to go to town. And if you ever spend any time on Riverside Avenue trying to get out off of Riverside with the traffic there, I think slowing down the speed limit will help. But from what I've heard, it sounds like they're going to be the criteria and this is going to pass. But having the access point in from Highway 11 on that access point is the wrong spot. That's going to impede everybody trying to leave Highway 11 or Riverside onto Highway 11. It's going to make it a way more dangerous situation. You should go up and down that a couple times and see how fun it is to try to get out safely every day, several times a day. So I'm very much against it, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to provide comment in support? Okay, you could please unmute. Do you have the name? Eric? Eric, if you can hear me, if you could unmute and please state your name for the record.
Eric online, you'd unmute and state your name for the record. Eric online.
Okay, Eric, we can see you. Are you unmuted?
It looks like maybe he's messaging us.
That it's not allowing him to unmute his microphone.
Oh, he's trying to unmute. Looks like he's trying to unmute. We can come back to Eric, Mayor, maybe. Can you unmute him? Yeah. It seems like we're having technical difficulties.
Okay. Do you have anyone else in person? And take a little pause here for a second.
You might try logging off, Eric, and coming back. Maybe that'll allow you to get back on or get your mic working.
I will wait for a second. A few seconds.
I think he logged off, so he might be coming back.
Okay.
We should have the Jeopardy song. Come on.
Intermission.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that Eric? Did he just come back on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Eric, can you try and unmute now?
There we go. Does that work?
Yes, that worked.
Okay,
If you could
perfect,
please
thank-
state your name for the record.
Yeah, it's Eric Wool. I own the Riverview Mobile Home Park directly across the street from the subject.
Kim?
Am I good to start speaking?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm against, this cannabis facility being put at this location. The property that I own is a 75 lot, family park directly across the street from this location. We have countless numbers of kids going in and out of our park, throughout the day, honestly, and weekends. In addition to the bus stop that's right there, this area is just not a good fit for a cannabis dispensary for the simple fact of, I think, to piggyback on what a lot of other people have said, just the amount of trash, paraphernalia, negative impact on the community through, people driving under the influence. I think there's other places that are not so close to such dense residential, that, they can look to put this, but I do believe that this is way too close to, specifically my park and all the families that live there. And I can tell you that very few to no one in our park wants to see a cannabis facility put directly across the street. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else in support of the appeal? Okay, hearing none in person or online, we will go to those against the appeal. This would be the time for you to provide public comment. Okay, do we have none? Okay. Hearing none, this is the time that I will close the public hearing. And now is time for council discussion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I could interrupt, I think we need to give the appellant the opportunity to rebut
Okay.
the testimony that was
Okay.
given. So if you could give them maybe 3 to 5 minutes to rebut the testimony that was provided.
Okay, so the testimony that was provided by the applicant, since we didn't have any.
Excuse me, I might have the terms reversed. So the people that appealed the decision need an opportunity to speak to the testimony by the applicant, the original applicant. So they made the appeal.
Okay.
And now that I think they have it, the 3 to 5 minutes to be able to rebut the evidence that was given after their original testimony.
Okay. I guess we will have those that would like to come up. I know we had 3 that spoke on behalf. Anyone who would like to come up to provide a rebuttal?
Erin Purchase for the record. I want to address quickly Epic Martial Arts. I am their landlord. They did not disclose they were not originally intended to be for children or focused on children. And if you Google their business hours, they're open 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday, I think it said, from 12 to 7. And once again, I think he intended it to be more for adults. So that just recently opened. And I think that's important, but also the evidence that I brought to the city council, that has not been seen by the planning department. And it is not simple to call the police department and ask them for records from 2017. I paid a lot of money for them and it took the city weeks to get them to me. So I really think and I really hope that you look at the records, because I've owned Kind Leaf for many years and I've operated it since the beginning. And it doesn't matter how many times you walk around that parking lot, these problems cannot be prevented. I have had 100% on every single OLCC inspection and I've never sold to a minor. And I'm very strict and I sit on rules advisory committees and I've worked with the state hand in hand. I'm a very, very responsible retailer. And it doesn't matter how responsible you are. I've demonstrated that all 4 of us have substantial crime at our facilities. And there's no way to prevent that. And as you heard from testimony, there are a lot of children in this neighborhood. And there's not a single other dispensary around this many children. And there are other locations, maybe they can bring in another piece of land from the county like they did for this one and get it open somewhere where there's not so many children. But I think that's very important that you look at what's brought in front of you, because you're the first people to look at the evidence that I brought to the table today. And also there were discrepancies said to the planning department that were specifically asked about a bus stop in front of the current location of Bryson Thurman's shop, their smoke shop. It's not in front of his shop. It's not within 100 feet. It's cleared across the railroad tracks towards the river. And I think that's really important because the children are already exposed to cannabis on an everyday basis and drugs and all sorts of stuff in our community. There's a huge outcry for us to clean up our community. And to add another dispensary when I've brought the evidence from all 4 of us being very ridden with crime. And I'm a concerned citizen. Competition is not a part of this. I was born here, I was raised here, and I have the right to appeal this. My daughter is goes to high school. She can't go to the bathroom with a door on there because they can't stop them from vaping in the bathroom. We have a problem in our community. And I don't know if it can be mitigated with just continuously opening up more and more and more of these facilities. So this isn't about competition. This is about my love for the community that I was born and raised in. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, time's up.
Okay. I think the staff has said that time is up for the response. Okay, thank you. Okay, we good now
We're
to
good.
go to closing the public hearing? And now would be time for council discussion. Matter.
I have a question.
Okay,
So, and I don't know if this can be answered here, but back when the dispensary tried to locate on Tutawilla and it was a bus stop issue that derailed it, has there been precedent set and how was that decided?
Julie?
Legs are asleep. Okay, so looking back at the record for that particular application, that conditional use was approved. Therefore, it was not derailed. The owner or the applicant for that particular marijuana dispensary chose to not locate there and find a new location.
Thank you.
there's any additional questions that we have for staff or for discussion, we do have Nancy online as well as staff here in the room, if there are any questions from the facts that everyone has heard tonight.
I read this packet completely, and I do not see the document that you reference, Aaron, about all of the incidents. So where would pay, is it online? Oh, it's online and not in the packet. Okay, that's my bad.
Email.
Okay, it's
Yesterday.
it's online. Okay,
It was an email.
it was in that document. Okay.
I'm just counting up right now. In 9 years of service, Kind Leaf had 30 calls. In 7 years of service, Thurs had 29. Pendleton Cannabis had something like 19. And the majority of this document is High Desert, as they are right on the corner at the base of Southgate
Right.
and have quite a bit of traffic from other external influences or proximity influences.
And what were the major concerns? Oh, it doesn't
I haven't been able to aggregate. It's on
Okay,
here.
all
but I
right,
haven't been able to
okay,
aggregate
all
that
right.
Mentally.
I mean, kids driving to McDonald's see 2 dispensaries and see cannabis signs. I guess I'm a little conflicted about how that seeing a cannabis sign causes trauma to children. But I mean, they see things all the time. A sign is not going to cause a child to but I am concerned about what might happen on site. And that's why I want to review that document.
That's a question regarding school bus stops. I believe starting somewhere around page 97 in the packet, we have a list of those bus stops. There's a little bit of disagreement about the location of bus stops with proximity to Thurs. But I'm also seeing a reference here on like in Exhibit 1 on page 97. The first 2 are the Phantom Cycle and Pillars Motel. Are those active AM bus stops for, as it says here, K through 5? Is that correct? Both within a block of Thurs Smoke Shop, and instead the most local is not the one on 17th and Byers?
So I don't, Tony, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So we have Route 16 AM grades K through 5, bus number 150. The first 2 are 7:07 AM Phantom Cycle and 7:08 AM Pillars Motel. Are those active school bus stops? Is that what I'm reading here?
I get stuck behind them on my way to work.
Yeah, I can't say exactly what times they are, but they are
Well,
active stops.
We have that. We also have the PM version, which has, Pillars at 2:59 and Phantom at 4:04 at quite specific times, but at least those are, regardless of what
Yes,
time,
they are.
those are K through 5 and 6 through 12 for PM, both within roughly 1 block of Thurs Smoke Shop. So instead, the most proximate is not the previously referenced 17th and Byers-ish across the railroad tracks, but instead those 2 that are almost just directly abutting that property, almost.
16.
Yeah, Route 16, bus number 150. We have AM at both and PM at both. AM is K through 5th and PM is K through 12 at both locations. Thank you.
I did read a comment in the minutes of the meeting that they said that the Southeast 19th was more of an unofficial stop potentially, but not a sanctioned bus stop for, I feel like that was part of when I was reviewing the minutes from that meeting.
Southeast 19th.
Yeah, unofficial.
I don't see any Southeast 19th listed on the exhibits I'm referencing. Oh, is that the Pillars?
No,
then?
no,
No?
no.
Mayor,
Pillars
council?
is going to be on court.
Yeah, to clarify, yes, that would be next to Pillars Motel. When that was reported in the minutes, it was assumed it was Southeast 19th. However, upon inspection. It's actually at Southeast 17th. It is kitty corner to Thurs. The children do come to that spot and get on the bus at that location.
It is on 17th and Court.
17th and Court.
Understood. And then we still then have 3 blocks west at Phantom Cycles. Is that also still an active?
Yes, it
stop?
is.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have one kitty corner to Thurs and 3 blocks west of Thurs. Both more proximate than the Riverview RV. Is that right? Riverview. Yeah,
Trailer court.
Riverview Trailer Court. With respect to the new location discussed here.
A question that I have for staff is, it did seem like in the last day and a half, a lot of documents came in, on both sides of this. And what's the standard procedure? I know that that could be presented in public testimony here.
The request was that I give it to mayor and council, and because the agenda had already been published, that's why you received it directly.
You know, there's a certain irony to this because the council often is taken to task for limiting what people want to do in the community and opening businesses. We are, you know, cast as though we are restricting people who want to open a business who want to come here. And as you may have determined by what we've seen tonight, there are very specific criteria. And we do not, except for marijuana stores, really limit how many of a certain kind of business we can have. We have put a limitation on this one and some real criteria because we cared about what was happening. And so this puts us in, I mean, we take these decisions seriously because we care about what our community thinks and we care about what happens to our community. I just like to make that clear. These decisions are not easy to make.
And I want to echo Councilor Ennis's words. Where I'm torn is as Julie presented, what our responsibilities, what we can rule on, what we can look at, what the law is versus the will of my constituents. We were presented with a piece of paper that has 100 or more signatures of my constituents on it that say, we don't want this here.
Yeah.
And so we're torn between what the laws, what ordinances say we can do and the will of my voters. And that is creating some turmoil inside.
In 2016, voters approved sale of marijuana in the city of Pendleton. The planning commission spent hours and hours and hours on this decision, and they've already made a decision, and I'd like to echo that decision that the planning commission made. Personally, I would not have any marijuana stores in Pendleton, but that was not my decision. I don't feel it's the right of the city council to allow somebody to get a permit and get permission and buy property and start building on that property and then say, no, we don't like that, take it away. So my stance would be to deny that. I would make a motion to move to deny the appeal on those grounds.
I'd second that.
So Julie, I know that there are many steps that you were talking about in this piece. A motion has been made by the council to deny the appeal. So going into kind of what the next steps would be. So we have a motion and a second. And we would go into, typically I would go into council discussion, additional discussion on that motion at this point. But I know that there are many other findings or things that we need to do as well.
That is correct.
So to include those things in the motion would be sufficient?
The council should. Yeah, it's working. The council should actually make findings prior to making a decision on that motion so that it can support whatever vote the motion is.
It was my understanding that the planning commission had already done that.
However, this is a de novo hearing, therefore you have
There's
to make
more
your
to it.
own findings.
Okay. So do I just read those?
You certainly can with whatever answer you want to put in there.
I find that the location of this proposed cannabis retail facility meets the criteria because it is not within a zone, or it is within a zone that allows marijuana retailers. It is more than 1,000 feet from any other marijuana facility. It is more than 1,000 feet from any public, private school, community park, recreation area, facility attended primarily by persons under the age of 18. Etc.
This is a test, Sean.
Apparently. Okay. I already failed my vote, so it's all right. The proposed structure. Well, I don't want to make a decision for everybody. Those are going to be.
So in terms of the findings, the council would adopt the special conditions that were placed upon this business that were placed upon by the planning commission.
Yes. Yes, the council can say they support the same findings as the planning commission if that's what the council wants to do.
I don't know if the council wants exterior windows or not. I don't care. If the windows are there, the windows are not there. I think.
Well, but the planning commission did
Yeah,
support
yeah.
those.
So I would
Yeah.
support whatever the planning commission supported at that point. I don't recall if they had, I thought in the picture it had windows, but somewhere else it said it didn't have windows.
So the planning commission did find that the solid wall with roof line windows did meet it did create a barrier.
Okay, so I'll agree with Mr. Hatfield on that.
And the planning commission also felt that the ventilation proposed by Pendleton stewards would mitigate properly any objectionable odors.
I am not a ventilation expert, but I suppose whatever charcoal system they had is apparently enough.
And then the planning commission also stated that the cannabis plants and products would be blocked from public view because of the type of building, the site obscuring fence and landscaping were proposed.
And see, that's getting into nitty gritty details. The individual that wants to build the building there, I think that's something that he said he would do. So I would support all of those items there.
And the planning commission felt that the business's primary face would be towards Highway 11.
And it looked like from the map that the entrance was actually on the backside of the building.
So they will have a driveway off of Highway 11 and they will have a second driveway off of Northeast Riverside.
So that means the primary facade is facing
Highway
11. Okay.
And
So-
then no drive-through is proposed.
I did not see an indication that the drive-through is proposed.
And then this one is whether or not you agree with the conditions that the planning commission approved, whether those are necessary. And then also if you want to answer towards the condition that Brandon brought forward as far as the council's decision, 8 a.m., 7 a.m.
And that's
And then-
maybe something that council might want to talk about because the bus stop is not specific in the UDC, and I don't know if council wants to chime in on that.
I would say, I think you need to make a motion and then the council will decide on that or have discussion about that.
Okay, so
And then, sorry to interrupt, also about if it is enlarged, if you want it to come back before the planning commission. Those were the two.
okay, I find that the conditions are necessary because the location, the neighborhood, the residents, the bus stop. Therefore, conditions to further protect the neighborhood are prudent to address potential negative impacts. I don't think one shop should have to open at 8 o'clock compared to all the other shops. Restaurants and so forth aren't mitigated on that. If the building wants to be enlarged, yeah, I think that should go through the planning commission.
So your motion is that that their hours would be the same as everybody else's?
Yes.
Yes. And if the building was going to be enlarged, then it should come back before the planning
Yeah,
committee.
that's pretty standard on almost every
Is
building.
that the last one?
Yes.
Oh, you, Julie.
So that's your motion?
That's the motion. I'll second that motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. There would be time for any additional discussion of the council.
I'd like to address the opening hours. I think it is rather arbitrary, especially considering the proximity of other dispensaries to similar other adjacent locations, i.e. bus stops. Additionally, it would be arbitrary to choose to limit their open hours at AM drop off and pickup, but make no mention of PM return. And so it feels rather arbitrary to put that undue limitation on one dispensary and not all. That's why I support Sean's motion.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
I'd like to speak in support of the motion. For a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that the consistency in making a decision about a business that is a similar business appears in multiple locations. And the fact that there is a new location just doesn't jive with me in terms of the expectation that that business has different criteria than all the others in town. And I would hope that the expectations for a new dispensary would be consistent with ours and expectations and guidelines. Hours of operation, who can be in the store are all going to be the same as all the other shops in town. And maybe I'm being a Pollyanna in thinking that that would be the case, but that is what I hope.
Okay, Brett, and then Steve.
Yeah, I echo Counselor Thomas's comments that I've heard overwhelmingly from folks that they don't want another dispensary. And I'm conflicted on this as a free market capitalist, and I've been looking for reasons to try to approve the appeal, but I can't find any others that aren't emotion based. So that's where I stand.
Okay, Steve.
I think my only
You
issue.
should speak into the.
Yes, I'm sorry. Off your talking. My issue is really the characterization of the neighborhood where the existing marijuana shops are located. Three of them obviously are not in residential areas. Kindly, it is not. High Desert Cannabis is, but it's very much a commercial area. And I think that, and then there's a couple of houses, but it's not really what I would consider to be a residential area. Whereas Riverside is, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. We are placing this marijuana facility right adjacent to houses and where children are frequenting. I think that it is inconsistent with the neighborhood to place the marijuana shop at that location.
But it meets the zone.
Okay. Do we have any other additional council comment?
And you won't get any money from me.
I think an interesting that just I'll make a comment specifically about the bus stops. And I know that when this was brought up before, I'm an educator. I'm a mom of a young kid. I also think that it was interesting to me in reviewing all of the information, public testimony here and at the meeting where this happened, that we did not have anyone speak from the school district or from the bus company or anyone in kind of that nature, because it showed that in previous hearings, when there was significant opposition to it, that they did come out and it was used. It was in our documentation that we did have representatives from those entities. So to me, it showed that, there was a concern identified by the school district in those cases. And so I think that this is a challenging one. It's one where we can't control the environments of all of those bus stops. They're all throughout our community around numerous businesses. And this is a challenging one with the council to be able to look at the emotion and the facts as well. And so I think, I won't likely get a vote here, but I think that it's one where I do hear the citizens, I do hear the concern about that. Looking at the parameters that the council will have to make a decision in this, might not outweigh that. Okay, so do we have any other discussion? Ellie?
I, like probably most of the council here, I guess all of us, spent a lot of time reviewing this. The initial packet we received was 120 some pages. Then we received easily 20 attachments in the last 36 hours. And I went through those. I went through the police reports. I went through the police incident calls. And as many people have said here, our challenge is that we have a pretty strict guidelines as to where we're voting tonight. Additionally, we have to be really careful to not impose double standards, and in some ways that is what we're being asked to do. And we can't play favorites. That's not what this body is ever going to be for. And I think everything else on my mind has already been said by one counselor or another.
Okay. Do you have any other additional conversation or discussion? Okay, there's been a motion and a second to deny the appeal based upon the findings that we have here. For this, I guess we'll just take a raise your hand vote, or do you want to do a roll call? Okay, you can do a roll call, Donna. Okay. Council Butler.
Aye.
Aye.
Counselor Mulvihill,
Aye.
Counselor Thomas,
Aye.
Counselor Campbell,
No.
Counselor Schulberg,
Aye.
Counselor Newman,
Aye.
Counselor Innes,
Yes, aye.
Okay, the application for appeal has been denied by the city council with the 7-1 ruling.
So just as a reminder, counselors, we do have a moratorium on new marijuana businesses. This business was excluded from that. So this decision will be coming before you at a future date. So this conversation in terms of new businesses in our community is not dead, and it will be taken up at a later date. So.
Okay, thank you to those of you who came specifically for this item. I will give you the opportunity if you would like to exit, you're welcome to, or you can stay for the discussion of the city budget. And as people are moving about the room, I do have a question for staff. And I know Josh is here. We have 4 items of business for specifically regarding the budget. Are those all exactly in the order in which they should be
Josh?
on the agenda? Because I know the first one is the supplemental budget and to make appropriations before the adoption of the budget.
Yeah, so the first, well, yes, it is in the correct order.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm,
Want to take a break or not? Keep going?
do people need to take a quick break? Because Brett left, I could kind of, we could keep going or we could take a quick pause for a couple minutes and then come back.
Don't look at me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I vote to carry on.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
most people have taken their bathroom breaks.
Okay, so before this, decision, though, before any of our discussion about the budget, would this be the time for, kind of our recommendation from staff around discussion of the budget and approval of the budget for today?
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question of, we received an email this afternoon regarding this,
Mhm.
about the conflict of interest that.
Right. Nancy, are you online? And could you speak to the memo regarding the council's ability to be able to vote on the budget?
And I was just asked, do we do this before we even start?
That's what I was being.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking before we start any discussion. So Nancy, we can see the top half of your head.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yes, I am here and I can speak to this issue. The Oregon Ethics Commission at some point came to the conclusion and issued an opinion, which is not the same weight as statutory law, but opined that an elected official, when voting on the budget for the organization that you're serving, if you're paid to serve on whatever commission you're, in this case, the city council, then that is automatically a conflict of interest for you. Because that put every organization, every quasi-governmental organization in the state that gives a stipend to their officials, put their budgetary acts, and state law requires that you have to vote on your budget. So it created a different sort of conflict for us. So the legislature in 2025 took that issue up and amended the ethics ordinance or the ethics statute and put in a specific exception that allows you to vote on the budget. However, you still have to declare that you have a conflict of interest. So each of you needs to, you could go down the line and each of you declare an interest, but I think it would just be simpler and faster if one person made a motion that recognized the type of conflict of interest that we're talking about, and that all of you who vote for that motion are acknowledging that you do have that conflict of interest and that it would not affect your ability to be impartial. So I put in my staff report the text for a suggested motion. If one of you wants to make that motion and just read what is in the staff report, I think that would, and you'll have to vote and approve it. I think that will suffice to take care of this issue.
And Nancy, I know the typical protocol is that I only vote with a tie, but for this issue, I would like to vote as well to be able to declare that conflict.
Well, you wouldn't be allowed to vote, Mayor, but you can declare that you have an interest you do have this conflict of interest and that you don't believe it affects your partiality and that you want to remain in the room and participate in this discussion.
Could we not say that as well as each member of the council and the mayor in the motion?
I think.
Yes, well, yes, I guess you could based on what the mayor has said.
Yeah, I think Nancy said I can't. So.
Well, you can't vote. I'm sorry, is what I meant.
Yes, I can't vote on that piece.
Oh.
So I would like to just declare for the record that like each of the council members, I have an actual conflict of interest in this, in the proposed budget, because like the council members, I receive a stipend for my time on the council. And I am going to state that I do not believe that I have that I can be impartial with this, going forward. And I would like to stay in the room for the vote of the council on this issue.
And I move to declare that each counselor has conflict of interest in voting for the city's budget, but acknowledge that Oregon statute nevertheless permits counselors to participate in discussion and vote for the budget.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Schulberg and seconded by Councilor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it's been unanimous. But now we'll go into, thank you, Nancy. We'll go into our first item of business on our staff report this evening.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Are we able to get a little spoiler and announce whether or not any of the pay rates have changed? Or does that become discussed?
They must have.
Any of, if we're, just so it's close together. in the record.
For the council?
Yeah,
You get paid.
okay, for the benefit of the record and the public.
No,
The budget.
they
There has
have
been
not.
no change in.
But you're
pay
due to have
any
a
of our
conversation about it. I think your rules actually require you to discuss it. It actually requires you to discuss it, I
understand.
think twice a year.
Okay,
Or
but not,
twice, not twice a year, every 2 years.
but one of those times is not tonight.
But it hasn't happened.
Excellent.
News to me.
You did not, the
Okay.
council did not vote themselves a raise.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not that you couldn't.
The next item of business on the agenda is item A, of new business recommendation to adopt resolution 2986, supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 26 and make appropriations. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry to bring this on to you at 9:30 at night, so I'll try to get through this.
You're good.
As mentioned, the city staff recommend adoption of supplemental budget number 1 under Oregon budget law. Adjustments to budget appropriations may be made via the supplemental budget process. These requirements have been met. And so a little bit into this, my goal as a finance director is not to wait until the end of the year to bring all of these supplemental budget changes to you. I've experienced a lot of delays in my normal job duties that have caused some of the communication to other department heads about their budgets and that kind of stuff to be delayed. And what, again, my approach was with this budget software was to not only increase the transparency for all citizens in the city of Pendleton, but give our department heads the tools to be proactive with their budgets in efforts not to get into situations like this where we're 3 days or a week out from the end of the fiscal year making these changes. So while you'll see some large changes in these budgets, it's all because if I don't do it today, here in 4 months, you're going to hear Rob Tremper up here telling you guys that there's findings in this audit because of the lack of a supplemental budget. So again, I want to say that there are efforts being made, significant efforts being made to get all staff on board with this budget software so we can keep this from happening year over year. Okay. So I guess going into the nitty gritty, this mostly is aimed at the general fund. And a lot of the changes are directly related to public safety payroll costs. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'll go through some of the line item changes that we're doing. Excuse me. Specifically for the revenues, we're proposing to increase the lodging room tax and the TPAC revenues by 60,000 and 40,000 respectively. These are based on, we're nearly through the entire year of collection of these lodging taxes. And so this is where I propose that we're going to end off on the year, and these are needed to keep the contingency from being dwindled down in this budget. And the revenues, they are there. Charges for services revenue, we're increasing that $775,000. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. We spent a lot of time going through the processes from when an ambulance call is made and from when the time the payment is received into our bank account. And a lot of those, there have been some issues with that process. We've streamlined and corrected all of those issues. And with that, we determined that there were payments that we had been issued that had not been cashed in our bank account. And so we spent the last 6 to 9 months working with all these agencies to get that money back. In addition to streamlining and buttoning up our processes to keep from being in that situation again. And so while that 775 seems probably like a typo, it's not. That's really, and then additionally, we've done a better job at billing for the claims that we're doing with regards to ambulance services. About 2 years ago, we increased the ambulance rates, which there's a trickle down effect. By the time we actually start seeing that money, it ended up being about 1.5 years after those rates increased before we actually start seeing the payments from the insurance companies. And so again, the revenue increases are to help balance this budget. Police department, fire department, both going up 695 and 460,000. Specifically, fire departments from call volume and having a lot of fire employees out on personal leave, new babies, that kind of stuff. And with changes in state statutes, we don't have any option. They get the time off, they get paid for it. And we have the obligation to the city to backfill those positions. And typically those are at overtime rates. With an overtime rate causes taxes, PERS, and all that stuff to go up as well. And so needless to say, there are some large increases in this budget, but it kind of is expected based on what's been going on in both of the police and fire departments over the last year. Convention Center Fund, increasing the catering revenue by $120,000. Again, that is based on where we are at currently to date. And we're above and beyond where we were last year. We probably under budgeted, which is kind of the approach we want to take on the revenues, is to under budget and hold our expenditures to that standard. And so it's good when we come over budget in the revenues. And then again, lodging room tax for PCC, the direct relation to the normal lodging room tax that the city collects, they get probably I think it's 14%, but my numbers are a little crooked right now. I don't know that I wouldn't need to waste your time going through all these different ones. Did you guys see anything in the itemized lines increases that you would like to discuss or know further details on?
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us where some of the biggest modifications, or did you just do a percentage across the board, or were they based on new information or more current information about where you think the budget should be in each of those categories?
These numbers are reflective of where we were at 3 weeks ago with actual data.
Okay.
And so during the budget process, I unfortunately went through a lot of these departments' budgets line by line and trying to figure out where we're going to be, specifically general fund and central service fund. And so as of probably middle of May, that's what determined these increases, was actual data through May. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ellie.
I had someone ask me about Central Service Fund item 5. I have my assumption. I would like that clarified.
Yeah, so a couple things. As we know, we've Chuck moved from police chief into the city manager's office, and with that, his salary is going into that division as well. Additionally, we hired a safety and compliance officer. Is that the correct term? That as well is being budgeted out of this city manager's office budget.
It used to be in Public Works.
That's correct.
And so that position, because the safety and compliance officer has a all encompassing role. And we paid for it all out of Public Works previously. we felt like it wasn't fair to pay for all of that expense out of just Public Works. And so I don't know how you broke it down in terms of a charge.
So with regards to this, because it came in halfway through the year, it wasn't included in the central service allocation. However, in the FY27 budget that we're going to talk about, significant conversations with myself, Rob, and Jeff Brown went along, and we determined where we thought was the most appropriate way to split this out based on the job duties and where we expected him to spend most of his time. So the majority of this will go to Public Works via the central service charge, but it, to me, is less transparent and muddies the water if we just have Public Works pay for this entire position. So again, it's an effort to be more transparent and charge the funds and divisions correctly for the services that they're receiving.
So we have safety obligations, OSHA obligations citywide, and that person's keeping us out of trouble citywide, but we were charging it all out of Public Works.
Yeah.
And that wasn't right.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And Josh, off the top of your head, like the central service fee or central service charge, do you have a set percentage that just goes across the, say, the department budget, and then there's a percentage that of that budget that is the central service charge?
I wish it was that simple, but it's actually a really convoluted thing that I'm trying to get streamlined. But for example, city manager's budget historically has been allocated to different divisions and funds strictly based on their budget. And to me, while that's okay, it doesn't truly reflect where services are being performed, right? So because Public Works, Water and Sewer have the two largest budgets in the city, does that really determine that 75% of Rob's salary should go to those accounts? So we're working on ways to figure out how these better alternatives to allocate these out based on where people's time is actually being spent. It's not fully developed or changed yet, but that is my process, is trying to get with departments who are within the central service, discuss where are you guys and your staff spending your time, and let's allocate it out proportionally based on that versus just a budgeted figure
Flat percentage
that doesn't necessarily come to fruition by the end of the year.
I just ask, in my world, it's called an indirect, and there's a flat percentage for each department and potentially can change. So any additional questions on any of these items? Currently, I'm taking a video. Okay. Thank you, Josh. With this, do we have a council motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2986, adopting supplemental budget number 1 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025.
I second that.
2026.
2026.
Oh,
All
right.
right. Yeah, let's make that 2026, even though the document says 2025.
No, this is supplemental budget for last year, right? So it begins
That's
2020, July
That's
1st,
right.
2025.
25.
Yes.
No, this is fiscal year 2026.
Yes, but beginning July 1st, 2025.
Yeah, July
Per the
25.
resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved by Counselor Ennis, seconded by Counselor Newman.
Right.
Okay, any discussion?
We have it.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it's unanimously approved. Our next item of business is the adoption of resolution 2987, the budget for fiscal year 26-27, and a staff report. So I think we have a combination of a staff report between Josh and Rob potentially with this, based upon some of the documents that were attached. Is everything okay?
You're good.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
Okay, Mayor, City Council, Josh Ernst, Finance Director. It's my recommendation, as well as the city's, to have the council adopt resolution 2987 for FY 26-27 as approved by the Budget Committee at their May 21st meeting. The total of all funds would be $120,059,135 that would be recommended for adoption at this time. This resolution adopts, excuse me, The budget was approved with the understanding that the building department would have appropriations budgeted. To satisfy that request, $150,000 in operational expenditures and $50,000 in revenues were added to the general fund's budget. As a result, the general fund's contingency was reduced by $100,000. And so that was all discussed during the budget hearing or the budget meetings that came into this budget as well. Couple other questions that I did not follow up on as immediately as I had hoped were regarding the PFC charges based on the fact that,
Passenger facility charges.
thank you, passenger facility charges at the airport and how that would be impacted based on the overriding of the original selection of SkyWest and going back to boutique. As we walked out of that meeting, I had a conversation with Steve Chrisman, and Steve reiterated to me again just last week when I asked him that I wasn't losing my mind, that this really doesn't have that big of an impact on the yearly revenues of PFC charges. Okay. We're talking, we budgeted $40,000. Last year, we earned $32,000 in PFC charges. And so the real impact of that change was the down the road grants that we would have been eligible to receive for FAA projects, AIP projects, and that sort. And so choosing SkyWest at the time, we had thought that we would get a lot more of these AIP dollars, which would allow us to do more capital improvements. Long story short, I didn't change the revenues because at the end of the day, any of those line items in that revenue bucket, they're going to vary $10,000 or more. And so it didn't make sense. And it's very time consuming to go back through here and make these budget adjustments. It impacts a lot of different things. And so I hope that's approved, you know, and not frowned upon, but based on what I've seen going through all that work to increase the line item by $10,000 when multiple other revenue streams are going to vary that same amount. I proposed and did not include that $10,000 adjustment in this budget. And then lastly, Mayor McDonald brought up the fact that there was some discrepancies or some confusion about the way the UAS infrastructure fund was showing in the budget. And so I want to try to wrap up some confusion on that. The way that fund was structured was a capital project fund. We went into the thing thinking we were going to be fully supported between state loans and EDA grants. After the fact, we got this all approved. EDA came back with us and said, actually, because you guys are adding on so much more expenses to your project, the actual reimbursement percentage is actually going down from the original estimation. And so at the end of the day, there will be a negative fund balance in here. What I want to make sure we are aware of is I have budgeted a payback out of the airport fund to to handle this. And so there will be payments every year. And within the first month of July, I need to come in and get some loan paperwork to you guys for approval. But there will be budget paybacks from the airport fund into this fund until it's paid back. I just don't know what that amount is until we finally get all the EDA reimbursements back. And so that's why there was, you know, the difference in look between that fund and the others. Okay.
And our airport staff is okay with that, with the loan from.
That's the way they structured it. Yep. And with discussions with Tim and Wayne, they're fully aware that that EDA reimbursement was coming up a little shorter than they thought. However, the plan is to pay this loan back with the additional revenues received from renting out lease spaces in that hangar. And so it's not that we need to go out for any new money. It's all going to be generated in-house based on new leases that occur at the airport with the building of this flex hangar.
And you're confident that that will occur?
That we'll get more revenues?
Well, that all the sort of shuffling the money is all going to work out so that there's not going to be a deficit?
I mean, there will be a deficit in this fund until it's paid back from the airport. And the next step is determining what that payback plan is, the interest rate if we determine to be one, what that is, and I'll get that packaged up again. I just haven't had time to get that all lined up for this meeting. But there will be a negative fund balance in that 362 fund until it's paid back from the airport. Okay, So I guess we'll go through the legalist part of this is Resolution 287 imposes and categorizes property taxes for the general and debt service funds for FY 26 and 27, or FY 26 through 27. Taxes are imposed for the adopted budget at a rate of 6.5771 per 1,000 of assessed value, and the amount of 590,450 for the GOB general obligation bonded debt. This resolution also makes the formal appropriation of budgeted funds for FY 26 through 27. For the general fund and central service fund, these appropriations are grouped by organizational units such as department or division. For the major operating funds and other non-operating funds, the appropriations are grouped by program and activities. Reserves and unappropriated balances in funds are not appropriated according to ORS. It should be noted that the adopted budget, while was 120,059,135, the appropriations adopted by the council tonight are $108,379,115. The council does not appropriate the reserves or unappropriated funding ending fund balances. And with that, I would ask that council approve this resolution so we have a budget capacity on July 1st.
I'd like to speak to the council.
Yes.
Thank you.
So there's two things I wanted to say, but I can only remember one. I put a memo.
Here.
You have my staff report?
We have the memo.
Yes, we have the memo in them.
Okay, so you may recall from the budget meeting that I was asked specifically about the building department. And specifically, I remember being asked by one of the budget committee members to that if we budgeted the building department, the only impact would be on the contingency. And my answer was yes, that the only impact would be on the contingency. And in my mind, that's how we would fund the projected fund, the negative fund balance of restoring the building department. And in hindsight, it was pointed out to me that that wasn't a good answer. The truth is that there was a lot of things that I said no to when I was putting the budget together that in fact, by restoring the building department and the projected negative fund balance that would be, I was saying yes to the negative fund balance in the building fund and no to these other requests. So I hope that makes sense to you. And I wanted you to know that. The other point that I would.
You want to see it or you?
No, because you've read it.
Yes.
And so I just felt uncomfortable with the answer that I gave to the budget committee and wanted you to be aware of it. And I think it was articulated well in the memo that I gave you. So the other point, I guess the last point I'll make is one of the budget committee's members made the point that if you give up the building department, you lose it and it's really hard to get back. And that is true. You could potentially give it up and it would be difficult to get back. But I think we could continue with the relationship that we have, and it would still be our building department. We would just continue on with this relationship that we have. And in effect, we wouldn't technically be giving it back or giving it up. We would just be continuing to operate under this memorandum of understanding that we have. And if building takes off, like we hope it will, we could, then maybe it would be a good time for us to take it back and reserve the right. So what I'm saying is we're technically not giving it up. We're just right now continuing to operate under this memorandum of agreement that we have with state building codes.
And the building official position is still actively posted for the city of Pendleton.
It is not. It has not. I have not posted it. And it has not been posted. I would say it probably hasn't been posted for about 3 or 4 months. But if you budget it, then I will post it.
Didn't we leave the budget committee hearing thinking that's what was going to happen?
The budget committee recommended that we put that in the budget.
Yeah.
And I'm recommending that I'm coming back to you saying, I still don't think it's a good idea. And there are other things, and here's all the reasons why. And that's what I tried to articulate in that memo. But if you think we should continue down that path and you want me to go out and hire a building official, I will go out and hire a building official.
I had hard copy that did not have your memo in it, so I have not read that. So I will abstain from comment.
Sean,
will having a building official in Pendleton allow all these projects to continue faster? Because there's a lot of projects that are stuck because we're waiting for building officials.
I believe that having a building official would speed things up. Yes. One of the things that came up in the conversation, Mr. Crumbine, who was the chairman of the budget committee, he suggested another alternative would be the tribe apparently has contracted out with a private building official, plans inspector. It's a plans inspector. So there's the potential that we could, because that I think is the primary hangup is plan inspection. So plans get sent back to Salem. And there's a hang up there because there's a lack. It's difficult to communicate with plan inspectors when they're 180 miles away. And so he suggested that might be a fallback position, is if we outsource that with that would speed things up, and that has some potential.
So like the Oak Hotel's waiting for signatures. Backfire Station is waiting for signatures. Would that person fill those?
There's some outliers there. I would say not all of the projects are directly related to the plan, the timing that it takes for plan reviews.
Yeah.
But I know that Tim and I both agree that there's a lot of things could be sped up if we had a local building official and we were doing local plan review.
So that the memo from you states, we don't want to hire this person because we're probably not going to get him anyways. And that money will just sit in there.
Well, and also historically, we've lost money in the building department. And so we're in a situation where I'm trying to divest ourselves of operations that lose money in the general fund, for obvious reasons.
Okay.
Any additional questions for staff?
I have a question regarding this.
Tim?
Do communities in our general vicinity have building, whatever that you call it, what was the name?
Building officials?
Yeah.
Hermiston has a full-on building department. Hermiston has data centers that are being constructed. And they have a lot more building going on, have had a lot more housing construction going on in the last 10 years. And in the last 15 years, we've made money, I think, twice. I think I put some data in front of you during the budget committee meeting that shows that Hermiston or Milton Freewater uses the state building inspector.
The reason I asked was thinking that maybe there was some cooperation or coordination.
I've reached out to Hermiston and asked them whether or not they would provide services. They've actually provided services before. They didn't get back to me, so I'm not sure how anxious they are to provide those services. That's still a possibility. They could. I also know that the state is trying to hire a local plan examiner. I think for the reasons that I stated, we had a meeting with Mr. Crumbine and on the Oak Hotel. Oh, no, it was on City Hall project. And the building official had said at the time that he was trying to find a local building official, local plans examiner, that he would be located in Pendleton. And he made the comment, it's hard to find plan examiners. So it's not just me.
So just for clarification, based upon what's presented for the council, We do have Rob's staff report in his editorial there, but what's in front of us is the approval of the budget, including a building department. But the one piece that it doesn't have in there is whether or not that position will be like actively posted, or we will continue on in the way that we have been.
If you budget it, I will pursue filling the position, funding the position.
Okay, Steve?
So we could have a motion that would to approve the budget with the exception of the planning department. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Can we can change the budget.
You could.
In a motion.
You could.
Are we ready for motion?
Why would we want to change what the budget committee's recommended?
Well, I think to answer your question, my thought there, Brett, is that one, I don't believe the information that was provided back to the person who made the motion to add the building department was provided with a correct answer. Is that true, Rob?
Well, actually the one who made the motion.
Yeah.
Well, I said to you, in my memo, I explained to you, I felt like my answer to the committee was incomplete. So my memo was to try to clarify and make my answer complete. I don't know that, I think the person who made the motion I'm not sure that person would be moved by what I'm saying.
Right.
He's a contractor in town and feels passionately about the importance of having a building official. And so I can't speak for him.
But the chair felt.
The chairman is an architect.
Correct, yeah.
Who works closely in the building community, and I'm sure he would not only benefit by having a local building official, but also express value of having a building official. And
But ultimately, at the end of the day, the budget committee had the information that they had during that process. They recommended something moving forward. There is the ability for there to be additional information to be presented to us, because ultimately we are the decision makers on the budget, not the budget committee itself. So do we have any other questions or anything for staff?
So, I do have questions. So
Carol did read your staff report.
what was the vote unanimous from the budget committee?
I don't remember the vote, but it seemed there might have been one person who voted against it. It would seem near unanimous.
Yeah.
I was only voting in opposition.
Okay.
Correct.
So the rest of the budget committee members that were there were supportive.
And if I could just add one thing, we did a lot of cuts. I think part of that memo was we did a lot of cuts and evaluation of all these departments within the general fund. And so Parks, Rec, Cemetery, and Aquatics all took significant hits to their budgets.
PDA.
And if we turn around and say we're willing to throw $100,000 down the drain to fund a building department, I feel like that sets a bad precedent and a morale killer for those departments who had their budgets hashed in an effort to get the city in a position to be financially stable. And I don't know how we would go back to the department heads who witnessed that and keep that professional relationship and ask them not to have issues with what's transpired here. Just a comment.
I think I'll just add one piece as the person who voted no. I think in that meeting, I made, known my questions about, the impact on other departments, and really recognizing that ultimately when we choose to fund something, we're choosing not to fund something else. Especially when it comes from, funds that have more flexibility in our spending. So I know we have some that are dedicated and have a very specific use, and we have others where we're picking and choosing what we're going to fund. So that was kind of where I was on that. Steve?
Okay, so just I'm still wrapping my head around all of this. If we fund the building department but don't hire anyone, we still allocated that funding those resources specifically for the building department. So without, the only way to move that money back into the general fund would be to have a supplemental budget, or is that a?
No, basically what we're doing today gives us the ability to go out and do whatever in the building department. It gives us the financial budget authority to go and hire a building official or go continue building duties. If we don't include that in there, then in order to do something down the road, we have to do a supplemental. But having the expenses in here gives us the option to. And if we don't end up doing that, filling that position, then we have $100,000 more that we didn't lose out because just nothing happens.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is money that you cannot spend on something else during that time for another use.
Okay.
Can I clarify? So Josh, what you were just saying about the cuts to other departments and then setting this here in what will, based on educated guess, sit idle and not be utilized to hire a building official. That is what is in front of us and being proposed. And you are suggesting that what is in front of us to approve could potentially have a negative effect on morale when some folks are taking cuts for us to freeze it up somewhere else. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your feelings that you were expressing are about what is proposed to us here?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Brett.
So this fund, though, if we were to partner with the tribe or use Hermiston or somebody else, that payment would come out of this fund.
If we continue the MOU with, yes.
So whatever resources we use for a building inspector are going to come out of this fund. So it's not we haven't cut departments just to throw money into a fund that's not going to be used. Am I reading that right?
Could I make an argument? So like, if the money was sitting in contingency and you were able to allocate it to a different area. So say we didn't fund it, there's $150,000 there, you could potentially designate it to another department.
Yes.
In addition to also having the ability to designate it to
the building.
a building official or someone for hire.
And what happens to those proposed cuts?
So
None of those proposed cuts that I referenced earlier, I mean, those are in the budget. So none of those are going to change right now.
Okay,
If down the road in this year, in the next year's budget, we'll come back with supplemental budgets and discuss it
so
at that time.
Rob's proposal at this point would be moot.
So Rob listed off in his staff report, a list of reductions that were made across the general fund by the departments to support making cuts.
you could adopt the budget with the building department in there. And then we could have further conversations about whether or not we pursue the filling of the position.
Right.
And we could pursue a relationship with Hermiston, or we could pursue outsourcing a building plans examiner. And if we continue down the path of what we're doing right now, the money, which would ultimately, if we, the loss, if we did nothing and we kept doing what we're doing, effectively, that loss doesn't happen. Because right now, all the money that's coming in is going to the state and they're covering their own losses. And so it's covered. So the net impact for us right now is we're just not realizing any losses right now, if there are any losses. So you could effectively do what the budget committee wants. And then we just have more conversations about what our options are. And maybe adopt the budget. In fact, I'm going to recommend that you do that. I think let's adopt the budget and then let's have some more conversations about what we do with the building department moving forward, keeping in mind that we should discuss this more given the new information that we all have about this.
Ellen?
So that was going to be my recommendation until I heard you say that essentially that earmarked money can't move then, which makes sense. But I do think it warrants more discussion and that after that at our next reasonable opportunity, we should probably set it for a workshop. We've got some unreasonable opportunities maybe, but at our next reasonable opportunity, I think it does warrant a workshop to discuss the path forward for whether we want to try and collaborate and pool resources with someone, if we want to try and find a plan. Forgot the title of that, plan inspector, because it might be a little bit more attainable than finding a full building official, or how we want to do that.
So Ellie, would you like to make a motion then?
Oh,
I
boy.
don't want to put you off.
I mean, the motion would be to adopt the budget. The motion would be to adopt the budget. Well, you tell them what the
The
motion.
motion would be to adopt the budget as presented in front of you, which does include the funding of a building department and would allow us the option, if we determine to pursue having a building department, we have the funding available to spend. If we make a change to this budget and hash out that $100,000 loss and zero out the building department, in order to pursue any building activities, we would need to do a supplemental budget at that time, decreasing the contingency balance 100,000 at that time.
Okay, so we should shorten that up. Adopt the budget as proposed. Postponing the immediate hiring of the building official for a future workshop.
We have a counselor that would like to make that motion.
I move to adopt the.
Actually, really quickly before that, I know we don't have a lot online, but we do have people that have stayed online. Do we have any?
They're all
public comment? Okay, I can't see, so please bear with me with that. Okay.
Let's see if I can remember it now. I had it in my head for a second.
It's adopt resolution 2987. With a request that the staff schedule a workshop to discuss the filling of the building official position.
So I move that we adopt thank you.
Resolution 29.
So late, guys. But yes, that we go, I move that we do this thing.
Second.
Second the thing.
Okay, so Ellie has moved that we adopt the budget with the building department presented. Addison has seconded. It was Addison that had seconded.
Actually, Brett.
No, Addison got in for.
Okay, Addison seconded for the record, with the ability to discuss this further at a workshop on how to move forward. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it's unanimously approved. We're gonna go on to, actually, Josh, I do have a question for you. So with that, I know you had the piece in there about imposing categories and appropriation of the funds. Do we have to make specific reference of those? Or is that included in just the resolution that's been approved?
Oh, good question.
Because I know sometimes with these, it's a multi-step process.
Are you referencing the imposition of taxes and such?
Yes. Okay, then we'll go to the next. Okay, then we'll go to the next one, which will be the state revenue sharing. Which is resolution 2989, electing to receive state revenue sharing for fiscal year 26-27. So that was just referenced in the prior staff report. Okay, so state revenue sharing piece. Do you have anything additional that you would like to add, Josh?
No, just that this again echoes what was talked about in the budget committee meetings, that the $180,000 that we are projecting to receive would be dedicated to public safety costs. And so I just want to be clear that that's the intended use of these funds.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Gotta have a motion.
Do we have a
I
motion?
move to adopt resolution 2989, electing to receive state revenue sharing for fiscal year 26-27.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Counselor Schulberg, seconded by Counselor Thomas. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimously approved. And our last item of business, which is adopting fiscal year 26-27 budget, declaring of tax increments and making appropriation.
Mayor,
Resolution 2603.
thank you, Mayor, City Council. I think this will probably be the easiest one that we've talked about tonight. There's no changes from what was presented during the budget meetings. This budget continues to fund the downtown corridor, improving businesses by giving grants out to new businesses coming to town or giving grants out to current businesses trying to make improvements to their properties. And with that, staff recommends council approving the FY 26-27 budget in a total of $2,278,700.
And this is specifically for the urban renewal district.
That's correct. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 26-03, adopting budget fiscal year 26-27 for urban renewal, including the declaration of tax increments and making appropriations.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Council Schulberg, seconded by Councilor Mulvihill. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous and we are through all the items of business. Thank you, Josh, for staying with us. Do we have any other business to come before the council this evening? Okay, hearing none, what I would just say is from everybody's calendar, Monday, we will have a special meeting, another special meeting of the Pendleton City.
What
Council
time?
At 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Yep. So please look on the city website for additional information in the next few days. Okay, hearing no other business, I'm going to adjourn us at